Okay, welcome everybody to our August 1st, 2022 work session. I'm filling in for Councilor Martinez tonight, and I will call this meeting to order. First up, can we have our city update, Ms. Solano?
Thank you, Madam President, City Council, and Mayor Gradisar. I have a few updates that I'll go through quite quickly this evening. We have a full agenda. I'd first like to read to the council a memo to PACOG members from Councilor Larry Atencio, who is the PACOG chair. And this is a memo that went out last Friday, July the 29th, and it was addressing PACOG meeting attendance. And Councilor writes, I would like to bring to everyone's attention that it is important that you attend the PACOG meeting. I would like the members to make a concerted effort to attend the meetings because PACOG is a very important organization. There are items on the agenda which require formal action and without a quorum would be delayed or could cause funding for vital programs to the Pueblo region to be possibly eliminated. We must take advantage of every opportunity available to us to obtain state and federal funding when it is provided. The meetings have always been held on the fourth Thursday of the month, except in November, which is Thanksgiving Day, when the November-December meetings are combined and held in early December to be held either the first or second Thursday. The meetings are scheduled from 12:15 to 1:30 p.m. unless otherwise canceled or rescheduled. The next PACOG meeting will be held on Thursday, August the 25th, 2022 in the conference room at the Pueblo County Emergency Operations Center located at 101 West 10th Street. Please mark this date on your calendars and thank you for your time. Thank you, Councilor. The next update to share is a quick COVID update. As of this afternoon on the CDPHE website, Pueblo County has 274.9 cumulative cases for the week. And the 1 week positivity rate is below 10%, down to 9.4, which was at 12.9 last Monday when I reported. And Pueblo County does have 10 days of stabilized hospitalizations, and that is up from the 8 days a week ago. So this week, a better outlook, and the wastewater results from the testing this morning also showed that the confluent had a downward trend of positive COVID cases in the next week. I have an ARPA update, but not a formal one to take time. The agenda is full. But what I did put together on each of your spaces is a full packet. And there are 3 or 4 different printouts. And the first one is a listing of the revenue received, the interest, and then all expenditures are all approved. We are calling it in accounting there obligated. So it is a list by resolution and ordinance. It is 4 pages to include on the 4th page the items that council has not yet approved that are on the August the 8th agenda, as well as the pending NeighborWorks infrastructure grant. If you go through there and you have any questions, give me a holler. There is room next Monday in a work session if we split the time with the mayor and our Director of Public Affairs in the community survey report to also add, answer any of your questions and add any presentation after you've had a chance to look through this week. But just to reference that if everything is approved next Monday as it's been presented, there will be a balance of unappropriated, unrequested $11,024,647.62. So that yell at me for any questions. The next update that I would like to share is, it's in the news today that Pueblo Transit received a grant from the Colorado Energy Office with a zero fare for better air initiative that allows free fare for all riders for the month of August. And they will also be providing a free shuttle to the Care and Share Food Bank on August the 17th at the Praise Assembly on Troy Street from 11 to 1. Pueblo Transit has also partnered with Southern Colorado Equity Alliance for free bus riders to the Pueblo Pride celebration on August the 21st at Mineral Palace Park. And it will offer continuing free bus shuttle services from downtown to and from the Colorado State Fair that will run from August the 26th through Labor Day. And then I have Daryl's going to pull up a slide here that will show you the Pueblo Recycle Works is hosting a waste tire collection drop-off for city and county residents that are limited to 8 tires at no cost. It is asking for your registration. Oh, and this is pretty small for me to see. The registration site is at pueblohealth.org/recycle. It'll be available on the city's website to access, as well as the health department's website. The event will be held next Saturday, August the 6th, from 8 to 3 at our Recycle Works at 1595 Stockyard Road, 81001. And the telephone number is there for any additional questions. There's also information as to the size of the tires. Again, you can access on our city social media, Pueblo Department of Public Health and Environment, and the city's website. One last update is the mayor is hosting a community connections gathering this coming Friday, August the 5th at 9 a.m. at the Betcher Pavilion at the Riverwalk off of Allen Hamel Drive. The key topic for the morning session will be the results of the biannual community survey. Anyone can access the community survey report at the city's website at pueblo.us. It is on the homepage. Have to scroll down and find the blue link, I think. Any advanced questions are welcome. Send them to mayor@pueblo.us. And also the community survey results is a presentation scheduled to City Council at the work session next Monday, August the 8th. And that concludes the city updates for the evening. And do you have any comments or questions or direction to bring for next week?
Thank you, Ms. Solano. Any questions for Ms. Solano? Okay. Next up, we have health risks and effects of marijuana use.
Counselor Graham. Sorry, I have a quick question. It's Sarah.
Go ahead.
Okay. I recognize that the health department is going to have a cleanup. I know that President Graham has talked before about having another city cleanup this fall, and I would like to I would like to see that come to fruition again. So whatever we need to start doing in terms of a council and public works to prepare for that, I would definitely like to have another fall cleanup on behalf of the city as well.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Ms. Solano and I talked about that a few minutes ago briefly, and she's on it, and she's going to get us a meeting set up with everybody. Okay. No further questions. Come on up, Ms. Adams. And just so everybody knows, there is a timer in front of your screen or in front of your microphone to watch for your 15 minutes, because we got a lot of presentations tonight. So we're trying to stay on task. Ready when you are.
Well, I thank the council for allowing me to present to you today. I'd like to share with you a little bit about my story, a little bit more about my story and why I left Pueblo and became a host mom for youth in recovery and developed a community called Every Brain Matters. I absolutely loved living in Pueblo. We lived on Elizabeth Street. I volunteered at my kids' activities in their school, Pueblo School for Arts and Science. I worked as a physical therapist assistant. I had a reputable career here at PT Connections in the Pueblo Athletic Club. And I graduated from CSU Pueblo in 2014 with a degree in exercise science and health promotion, in hopes to continue on to grad school to become a doctor of physical therapy. Then the legalization of marijuana came to town and my family lived in crisis. Oh, is my PowerPoint going on? There it is. Okay. Okay, there we go. I need to change my slide. Then the legalization of marijuana came to town and my family lived in crisis for several years as a result. By February 2015, my son was irrational, paranoid, inconsolable, and he was repeating things that did not make sense. He attempted suicide, was hospitalized, discharged, still suicidal. I took him back to the ER where I was told it's just marijuana, and we were sent home. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't leave him alone because I was afraid he was going to kill himself. He wasn't in his right mind, and I did not understand what was happening. My son did not improve, and within a few more days, he was hospitalized again, but this time in Colorado Springs because there were no available beds in Pueblo for him. He told me he was using dabs, and he described dabs as strong marijuana, and he called them crack weed. Dabs are high concentrations of THC, the addictive chemical in the cannabis plant, that are mass produced and marketed as medicine and now put in vape pens. I volunteered my family for crisis intervention with the Department of Social Services because I couldn't find treatment for marijuana abuse. My son had developed the pediatric disease of addiction, and by the next year, not only was he using marijuana, but he was using meth and heroin for a few weeks. The legalization of marijuana also changed my neighborhood. Mr. Fowler was growing and selling marijuana from his home. He was killed over a marijuana transaction, and he laid deceased on the streets at 9 a.m. on a Friday morning. And I watched as they laid the white sheet over his body. We also had a gang shooting and a car chase right in front of my home. The cars crashed in my neighbor's front lawn. 2 illegal marijuana grow houses were within a block of me, and one of them was robbed on a Tuesday afternoon. We did not have this problem prior to legalization. Amendment 64 turned every home into a potential drug house. Pueblo's drug culture is a crisis for the whole community. My son had no trouble finding people to feed his addiction in return for selling their legally homegrown marijuana, which came along with threats. I'll never forget the day when a mother who was using my son to push drugs to feed her addiction made a Facebook post about my son that said, "F with one of us, F with us all." After this, groups of people came after him. The police requested that my son should stay indoors until things calmed down. And at one point, he didn't leave our house for 6 weeks. The day he did leave our home, one of the people threatening to put him in the morgue and shoot up our house shot another teen a block away from our home. I was scared. I couldn't help but think this teen was making his way to our home. I unsuccessfully tried to get restraining orders against these teens and adults. I tried to get them charged, but the charges were dropped because the prosecutor said these people were doing worse things to other families. I started warning other states that marijuana legalization was causing great harm to Pueblo and brought criminal drug operations into our neighborhoods. So people started coming here for marijuana tours from other states and from other countries. My friend and I would show them the homes destroyed from growing marijuana, and we would drive them by marijuana criminal organizations that were linked to cartels. And one of those organizations moved in right next door to my friend, who taught kids how to ride and train horses for a living. But soon her clients became too scared to come out to her property, and as a result, she has now moved out of Pueblo. These are the pictures taken by me while I was standing on her property. Some of the marijuana is being grown behind the fence, and the shack is where they made the marijuana concentrates, the dabs. These operations can cause explosions, fire, violence, and takes up our precious resources like water.
It smelled like skunk. And so that's what I
Can
get
you-
to smell every day.
Can we turn the
Google
thing?
is
We don't need
all
to
the
play
time.
that.
And then we can
Thank
talk
you,
about
sorry.
this lovely junk.
Can I go?
Vehicles.
It's not
they
taking
come
me.
in and just slap.
Just advance the slide, please. My son kept relapsing to marijuana, what he called the safer drug in medicine at the time. Social services had discharged us saying they couldn't help us anymore. It was hell. We were in crisis. My son was gone a lot on the streets. People were harboring him, allowing him to use their marijuana. I could not afford the treatment options I was finding. The average cost was $12,000 to $20,000 a month, and that's with private insurance. In the meantime, my husband became depressed, suicidal, and having emotional outbursts. I was coddling him, thinking he was in so much pain watching our son destroy himself. He tested positive for marijuana and was suspended from his job. He said the bud tenders at the marijuana shop told him his panic attacks would go away if he smoked marijuana flower that contained 24% THC. Well, they were right. Marijuana did numb him up temporarily, but it also harmed his brain too. He was hearing voices and having conversations with them. As a result of this, my husband now lives in severe anxiety and depression that requires medication. Then somehow a miracle happened and we found treatment for my son in San Diego, a dual diagnosis program and a place that did not minimize marijuana's effects on his brain. This was the start of our recovery pathway. During this time, my husband and I agreed if our son was going to survive, we should not bring him back to Pueblo, Colorado. Then I found Houston, Texas, ground zero for the youth recovery movement. They have alternative peer groups, host homes, recovery communities, and a recovery high schools. My son went there the summer of 2016, and he lived with host families for 2 years. He became a strong leader in the program, and for the first time had sober peers and community that supported his health. My husband was eventually hospitalized, and the medical professionals advised me to go ahead and leave Colorado because of his emotional outbursts. So my younger son and I moved to Houston in July of 2018, and we were reunited with my older son, and we joined his recovery community too. My younger son doesn't have a substance use disorder. He has depression and PTSD. So working a recovery program was essential for him and for me too. And now my younger son has become a strong leader in this community and at Archway Academy, the recovery high school. And on June the 2nd, my younger son graduated from Archway Academy, the recovery high school. This is him carrying one of his good friends right before they graduated. When James started Archway, he was depressed and had shut down from the crisis he had been through here in Colorado. And his friend shown here, when we met him, well, he was lost in delusions and he couldn't have a coherent conversation with him. But now I'm proud to say these two young men have achieved 4 years of recovery and are thriving now. And I left this slide blank because relapse is part of the disease. When we moved to Houston, we had a great year with my older son. He worked incredibly hard. He achieved over 3 years of sobriety, but he went back out and we hadn't seen him since June the 27th of 2020. But a miracle happened and he showed up at his brother's high school graduation. He approached me in the kitchen and he gave me a big long hug. And I am grateful that he showed up to support his brother. And I'm grateful for this moment. But my son did not look well. Both my sons live in Houston still, and I have moved back to Pueblo to stay with family for financial reprieve because this crisis has broken my family financially too. And as a result of this journey, I have now become an advocate and the director of a community of support and advocacy based on science and experience called Every Brain Matters. Our logo is recognized as a life free from marijuana and the drug culture expansion that values optimal brain and environmental health. And I'm so proud to announce that Every Brain Matters is now the primary project of the Parent Action Network. I get to work with prominent people like Dr. Kevin Sabet, who worked for the White House under Clinton, Bush, and Obama. And I was recently on an international speakers panel with former Congressman Patrick Kennedy, who is one of the strongest leaders and advocates for mental health in our country. And the community of Every Brain Matters is committed to educate about the effects of marijuana. So we provide free science-based graphics. This graphic is listed on the front page of everybrainmatters.org. And when you hover over the informational icons, you can see the resources. We have pamphlets that give simple explanations about what is cannabis use disorder, what is cannabis-induced psychosis, what is cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, and what is and how marijuana can lead to opioid use disorder. And we just added another pamphlet. This thing's not always working. That explains the risk of marijuana and its link to suicide. Cannabis-induced psychosis is a break from reality where a person experiences hallucinations, paranoia, and delusions. Cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome is becoming a common diagnosis where toxic levels of marijuana are found in the body and people have severe vomiting and pain that can lead to organ failure and even death. These are the diagnoses that are so misunderstood and so many families are trying to recover from. Some families are losing their children to these harms, and some will never get them back. We acknowledge that the general public and many support groups don't understand the true and devastating impacts of marijuana. So in response, Every Brain Matters provides support for families. Every Wednesday, we have a climbers meeting that is led by professionals. And on the first Friday of every month, we have a speakers meeting for messages of hope and healing from people who have recovered from cannabis addiction and psychosis. And I'm so proud to announce that we also helped co-develop Maranon, which is a 12-step program like Al-Anon for family members affected by another person's marijuana use. Now I'd like to provide some basic education on drug policies. There are 3 types. You can have drug prevention policies, drug promotional policies, and drug recovery policies. And unfortunately, Pueblo's drug promotional policies carry a lot of power here. And as a result, Pueblo is paying a heavy price. The people who are trying to increase prevention and recovery measures here are swimming against a strong current and a flood of harms, which is exhausting and can be very painful. So what are some of these costs of these drug promotional policies? Increased youth use and harms to children, especially with cannabis vaping and concentrates. Increased road fatalities, crime, violence, the black market, which is increasing human trafficking, and increased drug overdoses and mental illness. The addiction for profit cannabis industry has been legal here for 8 years now, and we have yet to see a full ledger of profit and losses. This concerns me deeply. Why is it a few people make money while other people lose their entire life savings, home, health, and families? And sometimes they lose their lives. Increased deaths by suicide is one of the costs of marijuana promotion. The science states THC in cannabis increases the risk of suicide up to 7-fold. 23% of Colorado suicide victims ages 10 to 18 have tested positive for marijuana. And when you look at Pueblo's data, the outcomes are even worse. It's at 35%, 10 to 18 years old, and stays the same, about 35% when you extend it up to 24 years old. Another cost is more people are suffering from cannabis-induced psychosis. Psychosis, like I said before, is when a person experiences a break from reality, and the symptoms can be delusions, hallucinations, and paranoia. And the science is very clear. Out of all the drugs that can induce psychosis, cannabis results in the highest conversion rate from temporary psychotic symptoms to chronic psychotic disorders like schizophrenia and bipolar at 47%. Now, and the government understands this too. Dr. Nora Volkoff, director of NIDA, the National Institute for Drug Abuse, says, as we see more people exposed to marijuana, we are seeing a very strong association between marijuana exposure and suicidality. The more content of THC there is, the more addictive and toxic it is. And we are seeing a significant rise in psychosis associated with the consumption of marijuana. The higher content of THC, the higher likelihood of psychotic episodes, and any one of us and this can happen to any one of us that consumes this high content of THC. It's not like we're questioning it. You can fully become psychotic. And because of these harms and costs, Colorado Democrats and Republicans are working together. And I was one of many who testified for HB 1317. Dr. Chris Rogers stated at this press conference, inpatient psychiatrists have a front row seat to the emerging epidemic of cannabis abuse and addiction that threatens to swallow the lives of a whole generation of Coloradans. Our adult inpatient unit is hard to keep count of the number of psychotic and suicidal patients that are admitted with THC on board, and regardless of the data and clear evidence of how cannabis contributes to their illness, person after person refuses to accept that marijuana could be bad for them. And our story on our adolescent unit is even more tragic. As we repeatedly treat kids that are too psychotic to know what is real, who they can trust, and where they are. The rates of adolescent psychosis have risen steadily since the legalization, and most are linked to high potency concentrates. And I am grateful that my op-ed was published in USA Today about HB 1317. This bill reduces the amount of marijuana an 18-year-old can purchase with a medical marijuana card and directs coroners to screen for THC and unnatural deaths under the age of 25, and calls for a commission to study the effects of high potency THC and recommend a potency cap. And because of HB 1317 and the fact that the marijuana industry is harming thousands of people, they are now losing money. And that is why they're asking for favors to decrease their taxes. And they will continue to lose money while we keep on educating more people about the risks of marijuana. So where do we go from here? This is what I recommend. Publicly admit that we have a problem and come up with an action plan. Stop expanding use. We need policies that defund drugs, and discourage use, like increasing taxes and increasing regulations. And the state, and since the state is voting this November to legalize all hallucinogens, I'd like to ask the council to pass an ordinance immediately to stop this expansion of more drug accessibility from coming to Pueblo. Pueblo does not have the appropriate education, infrastructure, or resources to handle their current drug crisis now. So adding to the problem will only expand the harms and the cost to the taxpayers of Pueblo. We need to fund more education and not education from the industry. We need to continue conversations and presentations from people like me and Pueblo's medical professionals that don't have ties to the industry. I'm not sure if this council is aware, but we have heroes that live among us, like Dr. Brad Roberts, Dr. Karen Randall, and Dr. Libby Stout, and more. These doctors speak internationally to prevent these harms from coming to their communities in other countries. We need to also decrease stigma and biases. We need to denormalize marijuana use, and everyone needs to know that marijuana is a dangerous drug. And let's expose our drug biases. We just don't have a meth problem. We just don't have a fentanyl problem. Those drugs are symptoms of a deeper problem. And we need to allow people to come forward without being mocked, laughed at, or bullied, or saying that they're lying about these effects when the science supports these effects. And of course, we need to focus on prevention and recovery efforts. We need to not only learn about the disease of addiction, but learn about the disease of denial and enabling. Learn about healthy, strong, loving boundaries, enforce those laws, and offer support and resources. I've spent the last 4 years in Houston, Texas, learning about family and community recovery. And during those 4 years, I hosted youth in my home who are in recovery. I'd like to share what I've learned and bring hope to Pueblo.
Ms. Adams, I'm going to stop you right there because
I have one more slide left.
okay. You're about 5 minutes over your.
I know, but
presentation
my
time.
slide.
I just want to make sure you have enough time for questions.
Oh, okay.
There's questions from the council.
Okay, I just want to say we just need to stop destroying lives and start saving lives, and Pueblo can be the hero of this movement, because what happens here, because I talk to people all over the world, what happens here affects the world. So thank you for allowing me. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Questions from council? No questions? Councilor
Aubrey, thank you for presenting today. You know, back when there was an argument when we were looking to legalize marijuana here in this community or in this state, bring recreational marijuana, we didn't have the data and the statistics to support it. We didn't know what we were looking at as a community. And so I'm really glad that you're shedding light, because, you know, I listen to citizens all the time that are just tired what's happened to our town. They're just tired of what's happened to our town. You know, they want to go back to saying it's not a gateway drug and it's not contributing, and it's mental illness that's contributing to the homelessness. Well, all of a sudden, how did all of these people become mentally ill in our community? And they're, you know, now they're living behind the King Supers in squalor, affecting the health of our community and also adding to the crime. So thank you. I'm sorry you had to go through that with your family. I think a lot of us in this room have had to experience certain things with addiction, with family members and so forth. And so it's not easy to come and publicly share your story, but I want to thank you for doing that. And, you know, we have this I just want council to be aware. I mean, we have this excise tax that Dr. Hassan has put forward to, abolish the excise tax. And really, that's all we're getting out of the marijuana right now. That is actually, I'm sorry, excuse me. So it's bringing it to zero. If it's comparing to the communities that are on the ballot, it's bringing it to zero. And that money that feeds our general fund. So I don't know, it's approximately almost $3 million a year that we get. How are we going to replace that money in our general fund? I mean, right now we're having to ask to extend our tax so that the police officers, have what they need. We have fire stations that we need, and yet we're going to have to get bond money to build them and so forth. And so our marijuana money, our excise tax money is what goes into our general fund. And maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think I've done my homework, and maybe I'm not right. But I say no tax, no industry.
You're absolutely right about that, because the way they were able to push back on the tobacco industry, and big cannabis is tobacco 2.0, but it's way worse because you have the mental illness part of it. And the THC, this high potency THC, is 30% of users become addicted. And that's, more than alcohol, or 10% become addicted. So the way they pushed back on the tobacco industry was increasing taxes. So you're absolutely right. We should not be decreasing taxes. We should be increasing taxes to pay for the costs and harms.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Adams? Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Adams, for that presentation.
Thank you.
Next up, can we have Habitat for the Humanity? Hi, I'll just have you turn your mic on, just right in the front. There you go. Oh, there we go. You're on. Yep, there you go.
Well, thank you for letting us present this evening. My name is Rosella Parra. I'm the Executive Director for Habitat for Humanity. And with me is Christina Maestas, a board member with Habitat. I'd like to give you a little bit of information about our organization this evening. And at the end, we'll answer some questions for you. But I'd like to share with you our mission vision, a world where everyone has a decent place to live. And our mission statement is seeking to put God's love into action. Habitat for Humanity brings people together to build homes, communities, and hope. Our mission principles are fivefold. The first is demonstrate the love for Jesus, focus on shelter, advocate for affordable housing, promote dignity and hope, support sustainable and transformational development. Habitat for Humanity believes that housing both as a process and as a product is necessary to create lasting family and community impact. Let me tell you a little bit about our organization. You may or may not know, but we run the Restore operation. And the Restore provides income for the organization as a home improvement retail outlet, selling new and gently used construction and remodeling materials, supplies, and furniture to the community at discounted prices. Donors currently to the Restore are Lowe's, Walmart North and South, Big R, Target, Pueblo Association for Home Builders, and generous community donors. We also make a difference in the community by diverting waste through our recycling program. We recycle glass, paper, cardboard, and metal. The programs that the Restore support is first and foremost our construction program. We currently are building a home after a a slowdown of 4 years where we did not build a home. And then post-COVID, we're building a home. We hope the home to be completed in August. And our builder is Mike Palumbo with Palumbo Construction. He has built with us in the past, came back to partner with us again. And through his network of employees, trades, and suppliers, we are on budget and will sell the home at cost when completed. We also have restarted building handicap accessible ramps with the help and partnership of the fire department's DOTS program, Thornton Medical, and community volunteers. Our family services program is currently identifying and working with them so that they can become future homeowners through education classes in financial stewardship and responsibilities of home ownership. Our financial stewardship class is also open to the public. Community partners for this program are Vetter Bank and Walmart. We also will be opening a tool lending library this fall for current Habitat homeowners, prospective homeowners, and Pueblo Housing Authority residents. Once launched and running, we will open the tool library to the public. Our generous partner in this program is Colorado Housing and Finance Authority. Our volunteer program partners with Catholic Charities Rehire Program to teach work skills to individuals re-entering the workforce through the Restore. We also coordinate volunteer opportunities for community services, agencies, businesses, and the public. Most recently, we partnered with the Dog Patch community in Colorado First by bringing 30 volunteers to their community cleanup. At this time, I will let Christina talk a little bit about our ARPA grant request, and then I will answer any questions.
Hi, as she stated, we're here because we have an ARPA request in of $300,000. And our proposal with that money is to build a single house and be able to offer a subsidy for the family, prospective family that's coming to it. That's about what it costs to build a house right now. So that would be at cost. We would identify the family, and if there was any little bit left in there, because there might be, that would be able to give us a subsidy, because right now we're targeting about 80% AMI. I'm not 100% sure if y'all are familiar with AMI, but it's average median income. And we serve people based on where their AMI falls. And right now the house we're currently trying to put a family in, we have to look around 80% AMI. That's not traditionally where Habitat has focused. We've traditionally tried to focus around 50% or less and been able to offer subsidies. But when building costs are what they are, we do not have extra money for the subsidies right now at this time. And so our goal would be to use the entire 300 to put a family in that home. And whatever was left over after building costs, if any, it would be a subsidy to get a lower AMI family in the house.
Any questions?
Any questions? Councilor Atencio.
Where is this home being built?
The current home that we are building, and we had to go and get a loan for that, is in Pueblo West on Acorn Drive at the corner Acorn and Harmony. We used a lot of our reserves during COVID, and so we could not self-fund like we've done in the past. And so we went and got a loan. And this was after the ARPA request. So we're going that process. The next home that we're looking to build probably will be on the east side in your district.
Hopefully.
Yes, we own a lot at the corner of 6th and Glendale, and we are meeting currently with Pueblo Urban Renewal, and we're looking at some options for that lot.
Good, glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to not only infill in my district, but one house at a time.
Well, one house at a time, but we would like to build for the future so that we can make a bigger impact, you know, and like other organizations and affiliates of Habitat, you know, they start small, but with some good management and good oversight, we look to gearing up to build more than one at a time.
That 80% AMI, that's a little bit higher income folks.
Well, honestly, it's our working people. It's
Yeah,
our
yeah,
workforce.
Yeah. Oh,
first
I don't want to say
respon-
higher income, but it's not low income. You know, but yeah, a working family. Which is fine with me because we need housing all up and down the scale, no matter what it is. And whenever we can fill one, I'm 100% in favor of doing so. But 80% is a little bit higher income than.
And it falls under the umbrella of affordable housing,
Yeah.
all the way up to 120%.
So you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
One house at a time. I'm with you all the way.
Councilor Martinez, did you have any questions?
Yes, Councilor Graham, thank you. Thank you so much for that presentation, Habitat for Humanity. I guess I'm curious. So it sounds like you have a lot in Pueblo West. I know that you have a lot on the east side, and if I remember correctly, there's also a lot in the blocks. I'm wondering about like the next 5 years. How many homes would you like to build? Or are there any metrics or objectives for the next 5 years or goals that you can think about? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, you're right. We do own the house in Pueblo West that we're building on currently, the lot on the east side. There also is the vacant lot across the street from that lot that we'd like to look into purchasing, if possible, to make more of an impact. That's in the preliminary discussions of doing so. And we own one lot in the blocks on Nelson Avenue. It's an odd shaped lot, so building on it is going to be very challenging and maybe cost a little more. In the future, we also own a parcel of land that was donated by Tom Hausman, the developer and builder. It's on 29th and Wills. In that parcel, we're thinking preliminarily that it might hold about 4, possibly 5 homes, but we have to start development from scratch. We'll have to work with the city, work with planners and so forth. So we're looking for some funding opportunities to start the development process. And that's down the road a couple of years before we can build on it. We also have a memorandum of understanding with NeighborWorks in their new subdivision, Peakview, where we'll have the option on a few lots for each of their phases, and we'll be able to build in there. And so we do have plans for the future. How many per year? I'm not real sure, but this money through the ARPA grant will help us build our next one. And then we will sell the home and recycle the funds for the next one. And as we build momentum, maybe we can find a way to build more than one at a time. Does that help?
Councilor Tencio.
It does. Yeah. Thank you. I'm excited that you guys are building again. So I'm just excited to have you guys here, and I'm excited for the future. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Just a suggestion to city council, we might look into some kind of ordinance or resolution or whatever to reduce tap fees, permitting fees, all of these fees that the builder has to put out. That's a few $1,000s that could reduce the price of a home. And it really wouldn't hurt us a whole lot to do that for organizations that are doing this. So I just want to put a bug in your ear that council could do this if we wanted to.
And I appreciate that because it would reduce the cost of the home.
Councilor Maestri.
Is Habitat for Humanity, is it a federally funded nonprofit? I mean, do you receive funds federally from?
If there are grant opportunities available, we do. If we put into them, we did receive some PPP grant, which was federal funds most recently, and they were loans that have since been forgiven. But we do receive funds as they become available, and we apply for them. But yearly funding, no, we do not receive.
So there hasn't been any grant opportunities available to apply for recently, because, you know, I've worked with Habitat for Humanity in the past, and I know they have a whole construction team out of Atlanta that services different parts of the country and so forth. Do they not do that anymore? Because that was many years ago.
Well, they have assisted us in the past, but because of the fact that we were out of compliance and hadn't built a home in the last 3 years, we're on the back burner for those opportunities.
Would that be pretty across the country? Would everybody have not really kind of built because of COVID? Would they all be out of compliance or
No.
is it just Pueblo?
No, just affiliate by affiliate.
Okay.
We hadn't built as we needed to
Mhm.
fulfill that obligation, therefore.
How big is the home that you're looking at for 300,000?
The current home that we're
Mhm.
building is a cost of $253,000.
Mm-hmm.
Just entered into a contract to sell it for $250. And it is 1,325 square feet, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Right at 13.
And what is the participation these days of the homeowner and the community as far as in building the home? What's,
We require 350 hours of community service.
Mhm.
It could be done at the home, in the restore, at the organization, out in the community. We require the volunteer hours. And for this particular home, this is the first time we borrowed money to build a home. And it's the first time we required our homeowners to go out and seek a mortgage loan other than us carrying it ourselves and us subsidizing it. We always self-funded and self-subsidized with the help of the city in some cases. And the help of NeighborWorks in the past also for some subsidy. This is the first time we asked them to go out and get a loan because we could not carry the loan. And so they are also coming up with 5% down payment.
oh, and you said that these are working families that are qualifying for these programs.
At 80% AMI, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So just to clarify, the 300,000 from the city would pay off the house in,
No.
the loan for the house in Pueblo West?
No,
The sale.
the house in Pueblo West is completely separate. This is being done after our request for ARPA was submitted. And we had to find a way to build, so we borrowed the money and the homeowner will get a mortgage and that will pay off the balance.
So
that we
the
owe.
300,000 would be for a house within city limits.
The 300,000 would be for our next build within the city limits.
Okay.
Within the city limits, we'll do the same process, only that money will fund the build, we'll sell it and recycle those funds onto the next
Okay, thank you.
within the city limits. Yes, to relaunch us because we did use our reserves during COVID.
Councilor
majority of
Martinez,
our
are taking
reserves.
nothing? Okay. Any other questions?
Does that help clarify? Because I know there was some confusion on, but the confusion is, we put together our proposal for ARPA prior to finding a way to build because it was such a priority for our organization to get back in good standing with our international parent company.
Yeah, I think there was some confusion just with the timing because we just recently saw this proposal and I went to your groundbreaking. And so I was a little bit confused on why the city would be spending $300,000 on a house in Pueblo West. But
Yeah.
now
no,
that you've cleared that up,
yeah,
we're all good.
we found a way.
Yeah.
We found a way to go forward. And with, the help of a great builder that worked with us before, and he had the heart to come back and help the organization. And so we took that opportunity. And then, so we had to revise this request. So just so that it's clear, and we wanted to come back and make that distinction.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, next up, we have Rocky Mountain Empowerment Center. Miss Brandy Atakai.
Well, good evening, Mayor Gradishar and President Graham and all the council members. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to come and present in front of you all. My name is Chris Hall. I am the CEO of RMSER, and we have Brandy Adekai, who is our Community Service Director. So we're here to give you all an update about our Pueblo Empowerment Center, but as well as give you a brief history of our time in the Pueblo city limits. Slide, please. We have the title, The Future is Now. Back in 2018, 2019, we did a strategic plan amongst our key management team, and we said, we have to figure out something right now today. The future is now for RMSER, not coming up down the road, but today. We need to come up with a new vision, a new plan, a new mission, and come up with different ways of how can we as an organization be more in depth into the community that we serve. So that's why we came up with a new mission. We champion social awareness by transforming lives through inspiration and empowerment. But then at the same time, we came up with a new vision to be a global leader, providing social awareness, which empowers, inspires, and connect communities to resources. And what we're going to present to you today is called the Empowerment Camp Us, a collaborative community project, collaborative. That's one thing that we missed out on for the past, I would say, 20 years of being in Pueblo. We was not very collaborative, as I would say. We have learned from those years of not being collaborative. COVID has really set us aside and say, hey, let's take a look at yourself, the man in the mirror, per se. And now how can we build from what has happened in 2020 during COVID? So go ahead. We produce an impact statement of what we have done in the state of Colorado for 42 years. We have served over 215,000 families. The one in the middle is 13,000 households served. That is from our food mobile distribution and food pantries. We have also served 63,000 migrant seasonal farm workers over the years. We have also given out 36,000 gifts during our Seasons for Giving campaign to the little children. We also, RMSER has had a great impact program in all the 64 counties of Colorado. So we're located and provide services throughout the 4 corners of the state. We have served 72,000 children have benefited from our early childhood education program. We have served 18.6 million nutritious meals, and over 1,000 children have been served in our early childhood literacy program. So next is the impact to Pueblo in itself. We actually started in Pueblo in 2002. Was when we first took over the Pueblo Head Start grant. From there, we employed 70 individuals. We went up to high as 91 individuals in 2011. And then we kept things constant all the way into 2020 until COVID hit. And then that's when we did not renew our funding for the Head Start grant in itself. So overall, we had about 1,500 employees that we have had in the city of Pueblo. The money spent, as you can see, the bottom category, the dark purple, represents salaries and wages that we have totally spent. And then the top is more so operating expense, I'm sorry. The total impact into the Pueblo community has been $94 million that we have infiltrated into this community in itself. Not taken away, we brought grant funding into this community. That's also in 2006, is that 2006? Yes, 2006, we purchased the Seton building. We purchased that for about $2 million, $2.1 million. And then, of course, along the way, we had to do massive renovations to get that facility up to par. In 2018, we purchased SPAN, Elementary as well as Summerlin Elementary, both costing about $100,000 a piece. We're going to talk about those two facilities in a minute. In 2019, we did a master plan to talk about how do we actually use Span Elementary as well as Summerlin Elementary, dealing with a lot of renovations and what programs can those facilities handle, as well as the community in itself. We spent over $250,000 to produce 2 master plans. And if anyone would like to see that, I can forward a copy to you all at a later time. So here is a schematic of Span Elementary. As we all know right now, that is an eyesore to the community. A lot of vandalism has happened. We have had a lot of theft in that building. It just seems like we cannot get this project off the ground because everything that is happening with that facility. All of the windows is broken into. I went by there again last week. All the windows is broken into. Just so much is happening there. And we say that we have to do something with this facility. We have to do something to give life back into the east side of Pueblo. One of our things that we want to do, this is one of our architectural renderings. This is schematic number 1. If we just totally renovated 90% of the facility. So we would take off the top right corner. I think that's the northeast side of the property. It will continue to be the field. We will move the playground on over, but then we also will have an ECE garden as well as a community garden. Then we have a parking. Then we put basketball courts, and then we have a park at the bottom. Then a part of the building, we will have a community wing. Then we still will have an ECE wing, and then the other wing to the left of the building would be also more community partnerships, or even we talked about vocational trade inside of that facility as well. Scroll down. So if you can see on this rendering, it just had different breakouts of how that facility will map out each room in itself. Go to the next one, please. So this is if we renovated 50% of the building in itself. You have more playground field area, a spot for ECE parking, then we still have a community area, the ECE wing, ECE garden, community gardens, and then also basketball courts. Now this is if we only renovated 50%. We will take out, which is once was the basketball courts at the lower left side of the building, and put a playground there, community garden, and ECE wing. And then we will totally build a new community wing, which will be up to the northeast side of the property in itself. And then this here, the next slide shows the what each classroom will be in itself. So scroll down. Next one is tearing down the whole facility and building a new facility in itself. So if we scrape it and put it up brand new, this is what that property in itself will look like in itself. And then this will show what the rooms and different things of that nature will, how it will be laid out inside of the facility in itself. Next, we have Summerlin. Summerlin is not so bad, but Summerlin is getting bad. Summerlin is getting bad. Brandy was just over there and we found another break-in today. And they are stealing more of the copper pipes inside of there. They have not really touched all of the stuff that we've been storing there, but they're getting inside, breaking the windows and cutting off the chains and different things of that nature, getting in there. So as we try to redevelop, it is making it that much harder for us to get in there to actually do some things with it. It's not going to cost as much for renovations compared to Span, because we're not going to tear down certain spots of the building, but we're just going to make the building a little bit more multi-use function. In the Summerlin building, as you can see, we have the fields, the community garden, And then we also have the ECE wing, and we have a community wing in itself. And then that to the left of the property is the basketball area. So we call it an alternate community entry way, but that's also the community wing in itself with the commercial kitchen in itself as well. And so we talked about adding different phases of this property as we bring in the community partners, as we also start ramping up different type of programming, that certain aspects of the property in itself will be able to house different community programming in itself. So we're just going to do this in different phases, not more so tear down with a big, huge, complete renovation. All right, so what we want to show you is how all three of our facilities are uniquely positioned. At the bottom left, you see our wonderful Seton location. And then the east side location is the Span. Then we have a more north side location, which is Summerlin. We're strategically placed in all three areas, I would say, of the city of Pueblo. Now, this is the rendering of what you all are starting to see coming to fruition right now. It's an RMSER Empowerment Center, which was actually birthed in 2020 as we was going through COVID. We sat down as a management team to say, hey, what are we going to do with this facility in itself? How can we make this facility come alive, even though we're no longer offering Head Start services? That's where you see we have currently a food pantry located in our facility in itself. We actually are talking to someone to actually put together an early childhood education classes there. We also are doing some adult learning and training. I'm going to have Brandy talk about the partners that we have that's actually doing that service. We have entrepreneurship that's going on in the pantry. She's going to elaborate on that. Food system education. We have a computer lab. We also have health and wellness. This rendition came to light, I would say, mid-year of 2021. October of 2021 is when we started putting our rendition of the RMSER Empowerment Center to life. Brandy?
Thank you, Chris. So if you open up your packet and on the back side right here, you're going to pull up what it says, the RMSER Food Operations Report. I'm going to first start off with our food pantry within the RMSER Empowerment Center. Our food pantry, we have already served over 27,000 individuals inside of our food pantry, opening up October 25th of 2021. Previous to moving back into our building, we had mobile food distributions at Summerlin and Span Elementary. And going into the in-house, we're offering our services on Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. So evening hours as well as weekend hours. We service everybody, and anybody is welcome to attend. We encourage others to come. We locally source all of our food. So if we do get some sort of grant money, that money is used to purchase locally. We purchase Gagliano sausage, Martino cattle beef, Redbird chicken, Springside cheese, Royal Crest milk, different things of that. So people are actually experienced of not having to just have commodity foods. It's not fair that somebody makes a certain income and they're only able to get pork in a can. We're trying to eliminate that and that food stigma that is really prevalent here in Pueblo today. So we do have our doors open to everybody. If you kind of skip over, show some demographics there. And then on this back page right here, it says that we've only been in service 99 days and counting. So within each pantry day that we are open, we service over 100 families every single time. We go through over 10,000 pounds of food each and every week. So we work with a lot of local partners, such as the Pueblo Food Project. They are in-house in our Empowerment Center as well. Karen Share of Southern Colorado, as well as Eastside Action Support Team. So moving on to our slides, our Empowerment Center partners. So we have Small Beacon of Light with the food pantry that is offered to everybody free of charge. but the Empowerment Center is filled with amazing people that started up their business. So we would like to call this a business incubator, where it's actually an accelerator program for small businesses. So we get them the information, the knowledge that they need to be able to start their business and keep it running successfully. Currently, some of our partners is the Pueblo Food Project. So I'm sure that you're all aware of what the Pueblo Food Project has been doing thus far, but we collaborate in every aspect moving forward. We make homeless lunch sacks together. They use the commercial kitchen to be able to do culinary classes, as well as community outreach. We also have WeCycle. WeCycle is a Denver-based organization. We partnered up with them to be able to bring diapers, wipes, pull-ups to the Southern Colorado region. So every single family is able to receive 100 diapers as well as 2 packs of wipes every single month free of charge. We know that this was a need and we're filling the gaps here in the community. So we do look statewide to find these resources. We currently supply to the YWCA, Head Start, Early Head Start, Chaffee County, Pueblo Community Health Center, and a few others with those efforts. We have Eastside Action Support Team housed inside. They currently don't have an Eastside location, but once we're able to get SPAN up and operating, we will have food over there, whether that would be a food market or a pantry. So currently they are working on doing mobile food distribution as well as homebound food distributions. Colorado Art and Artists Associates, we have Kennedy Pugh here. He started up his business. So he works with theater, acting, music, all dealing around mental health aspects, suicide prevention and awareness. So he is actually been working with a lot of high schools doing some plays really based on social emotional support. We have ACES School of Creative Expression with Ryan Yank. So this is an alternative way for mental health therapy. They're able to come express themselves using the arts and crafts. We have the Learning Source. This is another Denver-based organization that wanted to expand out their services here to Pueblo. So they work with ESL classes, English Second Language. So we've seen that there is a gap in Pueblo where there is a lot of business owners and individuals that can't receive any jobs because they didn't know English. So they're able to take these classes free of charge. They also have GED education as well. This is Southwest Cobra. So they do self-defense systems and classes, fitness, cardio, active shooter, response training, and many more. So they also work with all ages, another startup business. This is Epic of Pueblo. As you know, Epic provides literacy and books for children, teens, and adults. So we currently collaborate with them for all events, and then we give out those free books inside of our pantry. Cooking Matters, another great program that's out of Care and Share right now. They actually do live demonstrations, cooking classes in the hallway of our food pantry. They'll go get some items out of the pantry, such as bok choy. How do I cook bok choy? What do I mix it with? So they do those live test tastings, as well as a community meal prep once a month inside of our culinary kitchen. Those are free to the public as well. Also, the participants all take home a gift card and a grocery bag full of all of those ingredients. We have Special Olympics that have been utilizing the gym space there to have an all-inclusive environment to be able to practice their sports. And also we do work with PDI, Pueblo Diversified Industries. Twice a week, they bring over their clients and we do vocational training. We teach them things as stocking, merchandising, landscaping, janitorial. With those skills that they learn inside of the Empowerment Center, they are then able to go get jobs in the community. We have had 9 graduate out of that program and receive employment here in Pueblo. Boys and Girls Club of Pueblo County. We have Angela here today with us. They are currently having their Ray Aguilera clubhouse there. And currently there is a wide number of clubhouses there for the next 2 weeks while they're displaced out of the schools. So we are active partners there, trying to find a safe place for children to be able to grow and thrive. I Will projects. So I Will projects, they work with hydroponics and aquaponics. So they build out these beautiful indoor systems to teach children how to grow their own food. So if you might have seen some like an aquarium where they're able to grow the microgreens on top, they are able to build out these systems. They're our current partners in the Empowerment Center. Then we also have the NFJP program. So this program supports migrant and seasonal farm workers to learn a trade. And then the trade could be anywhere from CDL, nursing, welding. We'll pay for them to go to school and get job training on this. This is a program that we have been running for 42 years strong. Some of our business and community consultations. So we have Eptimizo inside of our Empowerment Center that is being ran by Monique Mares. She has got to be in-kinding some time for each of the businesses to be able to further develop. We also are working with our partners in creating some performance measures, and I'll get into that in just a moment. Also at the Latino Chamber of Commerce, I'm one of their board directors over there. So we're well in tune with what's going on in the community as well as with the Small Business Development Center. We were able to get every single partner inside of the Empowerment Center as well as our adult learners a free Chromebook to better enhance their learning abilities and their businesses. CSU Extension Master Gardeners, they have their classes there once a month on Saturday as well as on Wednesdays. We gather the community in so they're able to learn how to grow their own garden, provide them with the seeds and the resources to build out the garden beds as well. And each time they teach a different class on how to grow food. And then we have Pueblo Rocks. So as you know, Pueblo Rocks is in all of our parks across the town. They also come in and do rock painting and different crafts with our children. So if you take out this long sheet right here, this is the RMSCR Center performance measures. On the top, you have your outputs, then your short-term, intermediate, and long-term outcomes. So our main one, entrepreneurs, community leaders are advised on the next steps to start their business. Our target, at least 17 businesses will be open for business by September of this year. Measurement, RMSCR will help with data management within the Empowerment Center, keeping record of guests and student attendees. So this is teaching each business how to grow their business and collect that data to then apply for grants. And then you're moving over. So let's go ahead and shoot over to this long term. The long term isn't that long term. It's just for what funding measures that we are asking for today. We will reach at least 10% of Pueblo residents would have received services from our Empowerment Center. This will include all of the businesses within inside would at least work with that 100 individuals to enroll in their classes. And then we'll be able to strategize making year-end reports, build up participation levels, partnerships, and funding within that first year. So currently we are strategizing on how to work together as a community. It's better to work together than to work in silos. How are we all got to collaborate in these efforts together? That was one of our questions that was asked when we first submitted our ARPA proposal was where is the collaboration? The collaboration is in full swing. We're having right now, as you see, we have a lot of our partners here today to come help support us, whether they be volunteers or business owners in our Empowerment Center. And 10% last I knew in Pueblo was around 11,000. It could have fluctuate. We are currently already at 9,000 individual families that are receiving services from the food pantry alone. So we also go out and do a lot of community outreach, whether that be with children's lunch boxes, providing it to Boys and Girls Club, after school programs, or just going out into the community. We also have homeless lunch sacks where we go down to the river bottoms and go to the different parks too, to be able to provide those. This is what we will be working on with each business owner. So they will be able to provide your report by the end of each year. And so we do have our 3 empowerment centers. Currently, 330 Lake Avenue is what our focus is. And then we have Span and Summerlin. And then you did see those graphics. We could share master plans for those other sites as well. I'm going to leave you with this quote from Dr. Martin Luther King. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving. And we are so very determined to keep on doing and serving here in Pueblo. We are in our 42nd year of operation. We did a huge transformation from early childhood Head Start programming to now food access and empowerment centers. So thank you for having us here today, and happy birthday, Mayor Gradishar. I know, turned 21 today. 21, that's where it's at. But we are open for any questions. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for your presentation. Is there any questions from the council? Council Flores.
Great report. You exhausted me with all the things that you do. You're amazing organization. You know, we have a real crisis in the United States having to do with daycare and people being able to work. How would you assess how important your organization is for working people? And I know that they utilize your early childhood, services, but I'm just curious as to how you feel or how important that is for working families that you're providing these services.
Yeah, that is an excellent question. Thank you for bringing that up. We're currently working with Fuel and Iron with Nathan Stern right now on getting a childcare service inside of the Empowerment Center. We see there's such a need for working families, even our law enforcement. You know, I'm sure we could get some more police officers and firefighters on force if they had quality daycare. Currently, I would like to call us some experts in early child care. We have standard operating procedures. We have everything in place already to be able to grow a thriving daycare center here in Pueblo. So that is on our plan too.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Tencio.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question, except that since you have the Span property, there's a lot of young couples, young people on the east side with children. I know specifically one couple, the wife had a better job than the husband. So the husband had to stay home and take care of the kids. So instead of having a 2-income family, they had a 1-income family, which kept them in a mobile home when they wanted to buy, and they couldn't because he had to stay home with the kids. If they had the opportunity to take their kids some kind of childcare, that would help. And not only that, the proximity on the east side to where they live would be great. But it's a big need over there on that side of town.
Oh, it sure is. We've been working with the workforce office here in Pueblo too to get people to go to work. So we're doing a lot of vocational training to teach those skills so they could then put it on their resume. Within our computer lab, that is open for anybody to access job search, resume building. And we also have a childcare room inside of the computer lab. So there's no excuses. Bring your kids and come look for some jobs and, build up your resume. We can help you with that.
Any other questions or comments? So looking at your expenditures and your revenue, it looks like you're in a bit of trouble, and that's why you're here, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, I visited your place frequently, and I mean, it's a place you can walk into Pueblo and you can really see, it flourishing. You can see kids and families, and I mean, the food pantry is super cool. I don't want to see this come to an end, because of funding and transitioning from the Head Start program, because that's kind of what kept you guys going, all these years. And I mean, I could see it with my own eyes, the good that you guys are doing for Pueblo and the growth that could be. We talk about how we always need a community center here in Pueblo, and this is a community center. It just hasn't got there yet. And so
they're here at today asking for the city's help to get to that point. Is that a summary of?
That's a fair assessment and an accurate assessment. Yes, definitely.
And I don't know, what we can do, to help them, but I would encourage, all the council members to go take a trip and see what this place is all about, because they have it going for them. And if, they get the Fuel and Iron project in there for the daycare, that'll just be another huge help for Pueblo. So hopefully that also flourishes. Counselor Maestri, did you have something?
So what is the dollar amount that you guys are looking for?
I would love, is my mic on? Okay, there it goes. I would love to ask for 1.2, at least 2 years of funding as we actually getting this operation in itself going. As you can see from the financials, we only bringing in about $74,000 a year, and it takes about almost $600,000 a year to operate. And so that's why I'm saying 1.2. I understand that there's a lot of nonprofits, businesses that is knocking at you all's door. I totally understand that, but 2 years would be great if that could be swung.
Yeah, I know. And we've had El Centro on the east side for how many years? And Larry's just got $1 million. I think it was $1 million out of ARPA, or 1.5 after all these years. And we have so many undeveloped land in the city that's targeted for parks that's kind of hasn't been developed because we haven't had the money to develop it. And yet they sit in neighborhoods as fire hazards because they're overgrown with weeds and trash.
Mm-hmm.
And so the city has a lot of needs of their own too. And, 4 new fire stations that we have to borrow money for in order to build. And so I think we all need some money.
Right. But any little thing will help right now. Anything will help. We'll make it work. Like Brandy said, we're not going to leave Pueblo. We're going to keep working. We definitely want to see that east side developed. That's one of the major problems, is that no programming. Those individuals don't have anything to do. Actually, myself and my counterpart, Herb Ray, we was down in Span last week. We walked through it and we busted a couple of individuals, and they're still in the Cat 5s right in front of our face. They didn't seem startled at all when we told them to stop. They just casually got their stuff and just walked on out. So, having activity, more programs, having more life there, I think will help bring hope to that community. And we definitely don't really want to give up on that community, figure out, hey, maybe do we need to put some affordable housing on all that land? See, that rendition was actually back in 2019 before COVID hit. COVID has changed a lot of things now, and I'm willing to sit at the table and talk about, hey, what can we actually do with all of this property? Do we put some affordable housing there? Do we put other programs there? Do we put of course, we would love to put our pantry there. Do we put more of a market there so that people on the east side can have a place to truly shop at a low reduced rate? Different things of that nature, but I'd love to sit down and have a conversation with you all to say, hey, let's come up with a stronger plan of the master plan that we put together, which was pre-COVID. Let's put something else together of what's going on and what's needed in that community.
Span currently sits on 6.2 acres of land. At our 330 Lake Avenue, that is 71,000 square feet. So each business is operating at a minimum of 700 square feet on up to 1,200 square feet to operate their business within that center. We have a commercial kitchen, a full-size gymnasium with bleachers, a full-size stage. We had the library district there. They even had the circus performing on our stage. We have 3 playgrounds outside, and within our food systems, we definitely help out everybody here in town, not only the local pantries, Karen Sheriff Southern Colorado, and anybody who calls on us. We are there. The county came to us. They need to try to meet their numbers. We're there to help them. So whoever comes our way, we're definitely available. I just talked with the police department today and the SWAT team. They're got to use Summerlin as a training center to be able to do active shooter drills and so forth. So we are here to be able to collaborate with everybody and anybody.
Councilor Martinez, did you have anything?
Yes, thanks, Councilor Graham. I echo your sentiments of how important Rocky Mountain SARE is to the community, particularly at the lake location. I mean, you guys have so many different programs for so many different populations and pockets of the community that I don't want to see it fail. I guess I have two questions. One, what is the funding plan between, I know that everyone would want to have 2 years of funding. That's great. But what's the funding plan for the next, 6 months? And two, I know that you guys have put in an ARPA request. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
I'll answer the first one.
Okay.
The funding plan is we have did some applications for some bridge loans. So we're working on some bridge funding from that standpoint. We have 4 grant applications that is currently outstanding right now that we hope to get awarded for. So we're constantly writing grants. We're really building it up. Well, something that's very interesting, in 2021, we really didn't write that many grants because we really did not know what we was doing. We really did not have the clear vision of what we was going to do. So in 2022, which is this year, this is when we truly started cranking out the grants because now we have outcomes like what Brandy spoke about concerning our food operations of what we're doing. Now we have the Empowerment Center. First, when we used to tell people about the Empowerment Center, I said, what's that? What does that mean? Now we have solid evidence of what the Empowerment Center is. And now we're putting together performance measures of how we can actually help grow the other businesses in there, of how we're going to collaborate to write joint grants together and going after more funding for the Empowerment Center in itself, for all our organizations there.
And Sarah, I also have a folder available for you. I could drop it off so you're able to see what our budget is and some of these other applications that we handed out here today. It lays out everything from what we're receiving, our expenses, into major repairs, and then our grants awarded. We did receive an ARPA grant for $26,000 to be able to purchase a truck to be able to move our food from point A to point B. And then we did receive a United Way ARPA grant for $25,000. 13,000 of that was to purchase food, and then the other 12,000 is to purchase supplies within the food pantry. So none of those have been for operational or capital buildup besides the truck.
Yeah, that helps, Brandy. I think that if your needs have risen, are those the only ARPA requests that you have submitted so far?
Yes, the one for the United Way was through the EFSP grant, and it was basically for emergency services to be able to get food.
Okay. Well, again, I just echo Councilor Graham's. Sorry, go ahead.
Are you talking about the 120 ARPA grant that we was talking about for the Pueblo Empowerment Center that we put in?
Perhaps talk about that. Yeah.
That's what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah. So we amended that one because we did become into some dire need for operating as of right now. There's a huge need compared to getting a gym floor resurfaced.
Yeah.
Much better than that right now.
I guess, so I do remember seeing some type of Rocky Mountain SARE application as part of the ARPA requests that have not been granted yet. I was going to suggest if your needs have risen, perhaps to revisit that application. And it sounds like you have. I'd like to see that application or a formal presentation regarding that application come across council because very similar to Councilor Graham's perspective, I don't want to see your amazing buildings and what you provide to the community to go under right now. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you so much.
Councilor Martinez Ortega.
Thank you, President Graham. Great job, everything that you do over at RMSCR. Thank you for what you do for our community, our families, access to food. I guess I just have one point that I would like to, I would have one request is that to see if Chief of Staff, Ms. Solano and the mayor's office can work with RMSCR to bring a package together for us to vote on, whether it's the 600,000, 1.2. I understand the 27, I believe, is separate through ARPA, but if we can get some conversations going, because I know that that funding probably is needed sooner rather than later, and it'll take us a month to get that going. So.
So
Thank you.
much.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you guys so much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Okay, next up, we have the high school apprenticeship program, community enrichment program, Dr. Paul Tienda and Fred Galvez.
Yours is not on the right. It shows red down.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I guess right here when it's. So this is where we start. This is the 30 minutes that we have. Okay.
You guys all ready?
Yes.
All right, we're ready for you. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, good evening and thank you for meeting with us. My name is Fred Galvez. I'm with CSU Pueblo. I'm the Special Assistant to the President for Community Engagement. And with me is Dr. Paul Tienda, who's also from Pueblo up in Denver. And we've been collaborating on a couple of issues. One is an apprenticeship program, which we will talk about. I'll talk about that later, and also some community enrichment programs. Also, Dwayne Nava from the Greater Pueblo Chamber of Commerce is here as well. We're working with him, and it's in concert with the Latino Chamber and the Pueblo West Chamber because we want to hopefully show a lot of unity and bipartisanship in the efforts that we have. But let me turn it over to Dr. Tienda of the Tienda Foundation, and he could tell you the background and his vision and how we started collaborating with CSU Pueblo.
Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you today. Turn it off. Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you today. I'm Paul Tienda. Unfortunately, my wife, my better half, couldn't be with us today. I'm just going to take 10 minutes to do a quick introduction as to why I'm here and what led to me coming back to Pueblo. One of the questions that I have been getting this year, and I started my efforts in January, reaching out to the superintendents of the school districts and the university, wanting to know how we could serve. We are extremely grateful for everything that Pueblo has done for us early in our development. We went through the school systems, District 60 school systems. My wife went to East High, graduated from there. I did as well. We both went to the University of Southern Colorado, now known as CSU Pueblo. I finished, she completed 2 years. And the question I get asked oftentimes is, well, why'd you leave? And I don't know that y'all are, well, some of you are, but some of you aren't old enough to know what was going on in the early 80s. Inflation's 20%. Cost for a mortgage in the early 80s was 15, 16%. The mill was shedding jobs. I'm a white collar guy. My dad was a steel worker, started when he was 17, retired at 65. But when I was 12, he decided, I'm not here to talk about that, but it's important to know that, save for the school system and the community, I would have just been another statistic. I mean, I would not be here without the support of the community and the school district. And teachers along the way who had empathy, compassion, basically sparked an interest in education for me and in my wife, for my wife. And if you go and we're not going to be able to get through all the material I provided today. I wanted you to be able to at some point, because you're getting a lot of information. I wanted you to have something to reference, to look specifically at what we're doing, and we're excited about it. But essentially, the reason for leaving was after graduation from the university here, was I was offered a job to work in the computer industry in the Denver Tech Center. So if you can imagine, a kid who was raised by a single parent from the age of 12, somehow manages to get through public education with all the difficulties that were going on in the economy and so forth. It was a real accomplishment to have completed school. And not too many kids can go and work in the computer industry. And it was Burroughs Corporation at the time, got acquired by Sperry Rand. They became Unisys Corporation. At one time, it was the second largest computer company in the world. And I worked there for a few years. And in 1990, got a chance to come back to Pueblo and actually bring wireless communications. I was a regional manager for a telecommunications company. So how's that for full circle? I went because of jobs. I went for a job for higher wages, something that I was trained to do that wasn't available here. And for the past 30 years, I've continued to own businesses in Pueblo and have investments in Pueblo. My residence hasn't been Pueblo, but my blood, my relatives, my friends, I'm a Puebloan. I'm one of you. I've never, I have multiple residences. I don't just live in Colorado. I don't just, I go elsewhere. But my heart is for the people of Pueblo, and particularly young people. There's a big research project that was done by Petco and a group called One Pueblo. Are any of you aware of that report? It's a comprehensive 250-page report that essentially identified what the challenges and the opportunities and the weaknesses that Pueblo was experiencing. Everything has been exacerbated by the pandemic. We all know that. Well, if I can point you to the handout that I just gave you under section 2, I'm not going to go through any more background information. You can review that. Our foundation webpage has a lot of information about what we do and who we are, but I want to point out a few things so I can turn this over to Fred in about 6 minutes. under the Section 2 research, Addy Advantage identified or completed a thorough survey of Pueblo businesses. And if you can look at the ranking of those, and no one's going to be surprised by that. Look at what the top 3 concerns were for business owners in Pueblo at the end of 2020. They're concerned about K-12 schools, the education system, safety, and housing affordability. Things that we're working on with regards to the 2 programs that we implemented this year with District 60, 70, and CSU Pueblo are going to address the top 2. The housing affordability, without workforce housing, you can have companies coming here, growing jobs. We're hoping to create trained apprentices in high school, developing apprentices to meet the jobs for the next 10 to 20 years. But if we don't somehow figure out how we're going to address workforce housing, which is a challenge throughout the entire country, I'm not here to talk about that, but that is something that's on the radar. But you know what disturbed me when I saw this report, and I spent several hours going through it, and I'm thinking, what is missing from this list? All these things are important. You guys talked about affordability of childcare, access to childcare. There's broadband, climate issues, the appearance of the community, stigma surrounding Pueblo. It bothers me when people talk negatively about Pueblo, and we're going to do something about it. We're going to change we're going to help to rebrand how Pueblo is viewed by the outside world, by some of the things that we're going to do here that people think are impossible. There's a short story I need to share with you about a country that's 25 million people that sits in the shadow of China that 70 years ago, it's Taiwan. 70 years ago, they were kind of where Pueblo is today. Where are we going? The only difference is it was an authoritarian state. Everything was controlled by the government. And the leadership of that at that time decided we're not going to survive into the future if we do this. Well, what's happened in the last 50 years? What led to the economic growth of 5% a year for the last 5 decades? What's resulted in them providing 65% of the chips that the United States buys in order to operate our refrigerators, our phones, our cars, and so forth? Y'all are hearing in the news the big issue about going on as to whether or not we should be having conversations with Taiwan. We depend on Taiwan for important equipment. But the things that they did to transform and create opportunity for their country, and keep in mind, in the shadow of China, the big, growing, emerging superpower, they've been able to accomplish this. The 2 things that they attribute to being able to accomplish that is creating a peaceful society. There was a lot of conflict going on during that period of time, a lot of fighting, a lot of pointing of fingers and so forth. Who's wrong, who's to blame, and so forth. The leadership came to the decision that if that's all we're going to do, our young people are going to be hopeless. They're going to be in despair. They're going to think if they can't figure it out, if they can't get at the table together and resolve their differences, how is life going to be any different for us? They made that change, and it was a peaceful transition, which is remarkable. So 70 years ago, and in 20 years, they started consistent economic growth, and today are a superpower technologically. 50 years ago, when people were talking about how many kids in Taiwan went to college, it was around 10% of people who finished high school, if they finished high school, went to college. That number today is 80%. So education is foremost in what we're trying to do in supporting public education teachers, supporting people that work in administration and so forth. So I am going to do everything I possibly can. And this is something that we're investing money. Our foundation has committed $2 million initially. And we want to see what happens here with these plans, these programs that we're implementing. There'll be additional money to add. I'm not, and by the way, we're not here to ask city council for any money. So I want you to know that. We're here to provide funds and resources and to address a real key issue. And that is improving our educational system, working closely with school districts and job training. The university spends it gets about $100 million or so a year in funding from the state to operate. PCC, $40 million. Between District 60 and 70, there's another $250,000. Add those numbers up. How many trained kids are we finishing, graduating from high school that can go into the workplace and work in a lot of the emerging jobs today? That's what apprenticeship programs are going to do for us. It's going to change the whole mindset about what are our young people good for? Our young people are going to have opportunities. And this is where all of us are going to have to come together. Businesses are going to have to come to the table. This announcement about the business breakfast here on the 23rd is rolling out this program because every business, nonprofit, for-profit business, we're hoping the decision makers who hire people will come and listen to what is available in our apprenticeship program. The data that's available for assessing how Pueblo is doing, how the schools are doing and so forth, I'm referencing those. Those all provided input into this decision about what we were going to take action and what we were going to need to do. I've got 2 minutes. I want to point to page 2, and it's an acronym and it's easy to remember because it's FRED, Federal Reserve Economic Data. I don't know if you guys track this, but it really caught my attention here recently when I came across it. On January 1st, 2015, the disconnected youth figure, and by disconnected youth, I'm talking about kids ages 16 through 19 that are not in school. So they've dropped out of school and they're not in the workforce. On January 1st, 2015, it was 8.15%. At the end of December, this was the first year of the pandemic, it was 13.38%. I haven't been able to find figures for last year, but I would venture to say it's probably running 3 to 3.5 times what the Pueblo unemployment rate is. Where are all these kids? What has happened to these kids? Well, that's something that we need to find out. And the biggest challenge that we have going forward is to try to not lose those kids, not get them to drop out of school, to stay in school and provide incentives for being in school. The kids that are going, that aren't working and so on and so forth, it can be speculated that they might be involved in crime. They might have mental health issues. They might be homeless. They might be moving from couch to couch to couch. Do you know that in economies such as Switzerland, which is one of the pioneers of the apprenticeship program, their youth unemployment rate is like 1.5% right now? What you find out is a correlation that if you can get young people working and educated and making money, these are all paid jobs, by the way. These aren't just, hey, we're going to send you off and train you, but you're not earning any money. You're going to get paid an hourly wage for this, and you're going to be doing classroom instruction. But the big thing that needs to take place with these kids is the opportunity to be able to work and earn a living, to have money going into their pockets. That reinforces education. If you're in the workplace, learning a trade and so forth. And so all these kids that are out and not involved in a program, we're hoping in some way, shape, or form through our community enrichment program, we'll be able to touch the lives of those kids, get them into an online school so they can work towards their GED, maybe get them into a trade program so they're learning, maybe those kids aren't going to go to a 4-year school. Maybe they need a 6-month or a 12-month program. But a lot of what's happening is a result of the trauma that happens in families throughout Pueblo that are economically distressed and so forth. The goals and objectives that are on page 2 and so forth, I'm gonna go ahead and allow you guys to take some time and read through that, because I want to allow Fred to take some time and talk specifically about the careers that are going to be available, that are going to be offered initially, and this list of occupations will continue to grow, and also what we're trying to accomplish in the enrichment program. Sorry, Ben.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Paul. You know, it's very inspirational for me to listen to Paul, and it's a story after my own heart. We have very similar backgrounds. He went to Centennial, I went to South. We graduated both in 1979. And as you know, some of you know, I was left Pueblo decades ago, was a law professor in California and New York, and came back just in October of 2021. And I was on the job maybe about 2 months, and the president wanted me to meet with an alum donor who wanted to give a lot of money to the college because he loved Pueblo and was very concerned about what was going on. We started talking about it, and you know, you don't like to talk people out of giving you money, but he sort of realized and did research and said, you know, Fred, we need to do this earlier than college. And I said, you know, my job is community engagement, and so I'm interested, but I'm not in the admissions committee trying to make money. I'm trying to help the community and what is best for the community. The old days of kind of just build the university, build it and they will come, are gone. An old liberal arts idea that if you just build good students, then employers will hire those students, even if they don't have experience, because they're hiring good students. They think they can train them, and then they'll become good workers. Those days are largely gone, largely because clients and customers don't want to pay for that kind of training. They don't want to do that. They want people that can hit the ground running. And so part of this is to give the workforce what they need, and that is students that are more ready and trained to hit the ground running a little bit and to build up loyalty. And if you can do that in high school, very good. The earlier you can do it, actually, the better. So part of this program then is to do high school apprenticeships. And in addition to doing kind of a District 60 and 70 and Chavez Huerta collaboration, it's public, but it's also private. It's getting the employers in Pueblo to step up and say, this is your community. We're not asking for charity. We're not asking for taxes. We're asking you to make a good return on investment, a good business decision. And part of that business decision is to lower your hiring cost and engage in bringing students along in your business. So we're doing that. And then also Paul started working with a group called CareerWise. Now, CareerWise Colorado is kind of a clearinghouse group. They have a lot of experience up in at Denver and working with many employers already. The old days of an apprenticeship was maybe if you're doing welding or construction, and those are still part of apprenticeships. But one thing that's very exciting about CareerWise is the 4-year college degree and the kind of occupations that they get involved for apprentices. So it is on-the-job training, and it can involve construction, welding, those kind of things. But if you look here at some of the occupations, there's over 30 occupations, many of them requiring 4-year degrees. And they're thinking, before we get students to the university, let's start training them now. They could start as early as freshman or sophomore in high school and get college credit, concurrent enrollment, which we'll talk about in a moment. But the first thing I wanted to just point out is all of the different occupations. And so hopefully with the invite that we're talking about on August 23rd, 8 a.m. to 9:30 in the convention center, we're hoping, and with your help, we're hoping to get advertised and persuaded for employers, you know, not to make a decision yet, but at least to come and listen and maybe be open to hiring high school apprentices and for any number of occupations, and they are varied and large. Now, one thing with Colorado, other states, the education system, as you see, it's not working in many respects. kids will start high school, but those that graduate, 79%, going to college, less than half, returning for a second year down to 32, and receiving a post-second degree, only 25%. And some schools that are more challenged will have even worse percentages than that. Other schools that are doing well will have some better percentages than that. So there's a challenge with education to make sure that there's not a leaking pipeline from education to work. And right now there's a leaking pipeline. And part of it is, how do we fix that? The other thing to do is to focus on what employers are wanting to do. Many of the recruiting employees, again, like I was mentioning earlier, they can't just rely on a four-year college and to provide that training. What they want are people that are practice ready and at least have some on-the-job training. 40% of employers can't find employers with the needed skills. I know on your dashboard of indicators that you've been doing on City Council, there's a comparison between the number of jobs that are going unfulfilled and then the number of university students with the wrong education or the wrong skill set. And so there's a disconnect. Part of efficiency is trying to get that disconnect to go. Well, instead of relying on just a haphazard, take this class, take that class, maybe you might end up in something. This is a more coordinated way where we would have a private-public partnership where the employers would invest, the students would invest, so we could figure that out better. 60% of employers disappointed by the lack of preparation for entry-level jobs. 75% of recently surveyed employers across all sectors reported this skill shortage. So how do we go about doing that? Well, the apprentice is a great way to do that. So what is that? Again, an industry-led workforce training. So this isn't just let's throw money at the problem. Let's get business to not just do the right thing, but what is in their economic interest, because that is something that has legs. They will invest in that. So it's a combination of workplace and classroom learning, bridging the education and workforce. So one of the great things about this is that as they're getting that on-the-job training, think about it, students who are in their junior year or senior year, they're getting paid. So they're getting paid. It's more of an incentive for them to finish high school. Part of the program is not only is an employer investing in them and training them during their junior and senior year, but also part of the program requires the apprentices to take concurrent enrollment. So what this means is they still have to take classes to go to high school, but they get to double dip to CSU Pueblo. So the classes they take go toward their high school graduation credit, but they also start going to their CSU Pueblo credit. Now think of this, this is like a full ride scholarship in a sense, and the state is paying for that. That will help a lot of our families. And this is all along the spectrum, not just middle class or working class, but anyone who has the apprenticeship. So they are working toward their degree, and then after their junior and senior year, they have yet a third year, and they still can receive money. There's an Ascent program where they can receive money. There's scholarships, not to mention in this apprenticeship program, it's with the U.S. Department of Labor. So there are federal funds available for employers, for some of the educators, as well as some state funds. The benefits of this program is meaningful work enables the rest of your team to focus on more strategic projects. Now, this just makes sense for employers to say, if you have some workers there, you get the highest and best use out of some of your workers, but you're getting some work done by the high school apprenticeships at minimum wage. These inclusion goals, it's not like people, it's, you know, some people say it's not what you know, but who you know. And if you're connected and you're a brother-in-law of someone, you could get a job. Well, this is a way of really making there be a lot of inclusion based on talent, based on merit. Also, I know as a professor, one of the ways I learned law more than anything, even than practicing it, is when I had to teach it. And if you have individuals in your organization that have to teach the apprentices. They come to learn the workforce strategies better than if they're just doing them. So there's a culture of mentorship, and also it reduces recruiting cost, maximizes training. The impact, and these are just, I'll leave this slide here, but it just makes sense. And I think you can get how for businesses, you're getting a pipeline of diverse 21st century workers. There's a good return on investment. You're reducing your hiring costs. You're building loyal, engaged employees. One of the things, especially for more than minimum wage type jobs in the future that require a 4-year degree, sometimes the employers will try to recruit from out of state or Denver or Springs to come to Pueblo. And it's harder to do that. But if you have homegrown individuals that feel comfortable about being here, that feel that an employer has invested in them, they've built up that loyalty and they want to stay here. And then those dollars stay in the community, and that velocity, if it's spent in here, then it's good. So it's not going to, sometimes we have problems of, say, doctors who they all live in Colorado Springs. They take huge amounts of money and they spend it up in that economy instead of spending it here, which is what we need. For the apprenticeship, for the apprentices, all their skills, experience, they get debt-free college credit, industry credentials, and they could make meaningful jobs. My brother, he quit school in the 10th grade. He was like the hero of the family, and he started working at the packing plant at Alpha Beta. And he did that because that's what the family needed. And, you could do that. You don't have to feel like you're selling out your family by going to school and getting educated. Here's a way where you could still make money and go to school and have a future toward, of your choice. Now, the way it works, high school, there are 3 years. So you work during your junior year and during your senior year. So there's a long-term commitment that you have, and you're getting paid during that time. And then there's even a 3rd year through the Department of Labor. And that 3rd year, you can either attend CSU Pueblo or whatever school you go to, but we're hoping CSU Pueblo, and or you could take that time off and build up more credit. So it might be by the time you finish this, you're already a junior at CSU Pueblo and you're getting ready to graduate. You get the on-the-job training and the external training as well. Last thing is just to say how it bridges the gap between the apprentice business and education. And it's something where we're thinking that Pueblo employers, if they're economically incentivized, but if they're also incentivized, hopefully by you, and hopefully if we could have city council come, if all of you could come to this, it would be great. I was told that may be impossible. If that constitutes a quorum, then it may be a meeting that you're having, but if you're just having breakfast, I don't know. So hopefully you could come, because we do want to show a united, bipartisan effort. In today's times, everything is so divisive. It's nice when we could come together and say, all right, motherhood and apple pie, students, working, the local economy, Pueblo employers. This is something that benefits everybody. CareerWise will explain how they help, what their function is in helping the employers. We have an apprentice at CSU Pueblo, and I could tell you CareerWise has been excellent in helping us to interview, to deal with them, to try and get them focused on the exact type of experience that they should have. They do employer training. They're even before our apprentice started working, they have a business essentials, a business etiquette. So they work with some of the concerns that you may have with high school students of, making sure you show up on time, not being on your telephone the whole time, what the business etiquette is, what the assumptions are before they even start working. So my time is just finished. So thank you.
He didn't get a chance to touch base about the community enrichment program, but I did hand you the flyer. That addresses the courses that we're looking to offer in the high schools, which talk about nutrition, disease prevention. Well, there you go. There's the flyer there. Addiction, mental health, a career paths course, and neighborhood watch and crime prevention. We're collaborating with the police department and sheriff department. We're going to be bringing some mental health specialists into the mix and putting a program together. But the school districts are excited about actually bringing this and introducing that aspect of it. We didn't get a chance to cover in my presentation about but I did give you a handout, the 10 apprentices that started last month. My foundation basically covered the wages, 100% of the wages for the first year. The school district is covering and District 60 and 70, CSU Pueblo, their portion of year 2 and 3 is 40%. We're covering 60%. Going on into the future, our commitment, and if you look at the mix of positions, 70% of those that we are hiring are future educators. We're really trying to grow from within Pueblo, teachers. And sorry, I didn't get a chance to get into that, but you have information to review, and you'll know that education, particularly the support of teachers, we hear about what's going on in teaching across the country, people leaving the positions and so forth. It's concerning to me that if we lose that foundation to our educational system, everything else down the road is going to be in trouble. And that's one of the reasons why we are putting money into training these kids in high school to become full-fledged teachers.
Just
Any question?
Just one last thing, and then we'll have questions. But Paul is really not only putting his money where his mouth is, and his wife and their foundation, but he also seeks to lead by example and get the employers to show that, yes, he has money, but he wants them to put it into. And if it's a collaborative effort between everyone, government, businesses, individuals, donors, educational institutions.
The school districts are going to pay for the concurrent enrollment classes. And if that employee is hired by an employer in Pueblo, they're essentially getting an employee who's there while they're in high school. Their classes that they're taking at the college are going to be paid by state dollars. They go to the districts. So that's a cost that the business isn't having to bear. Their employee is benefiting from that arrangement. It's called dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment, which gets them the training that they need. And then while they're in the workplace, they're getting paid an hourly wage. And it's a tremendous partnership basically between education, business, and in this particular case, it's us really believing in this program. And if you do a Google search on CareerWise to see the great stories that are going on in Northern Colorado, you'll understand why I reached out to them at the beginning of the year and said, would you, if I get the doors to open and the districts and the university are supportive of it, would you come and oversee this? So the districts, nobody is having to bear the overhead cost of an apprenticeship program. This program is basically, it's a nonprofit. They're responsible for all the credentialing of all the occupations, making sure that when the student finishes the program, they have a credential at the completion of it that is approved by the Department of Labor. And that is another added benefit of having them oversee the program. No one was asked to bear the overhead burden of running that organization. And they waived their fee. It's like $500, I think, for teachers. For if you have an educator, it's $500 a year, which is not a big cost. They waived that the first year, but I guess beginning in year 2, the fee per employer, if it's an education type of career, teacher type of career, would be $500 a year for the employer. Other types of occupations such as IT, engineering, and so on and so forth, could be a higher fee. But it's a very, very low cost to pay for what's happening in return with having this Department of Labor approved organization run the program. Sorry to go across our time.
Our ask is very simple, just to have support and try to convince employers to partake.
Great. Any questions? Counselor Flores.
Yeah, great model that you guys have created. And I think it's going to produce a lot of dividends. I read an article today. It came out of the Fortune magazine, and they were talking about Generation Z, which are, I just figured out was people that were born between 1997 and 2012, that generation. And they were talking about China. And what they were saying about China is that they had so much success with that generation in getting them degrees in liberal arts. And what was amazing is that that age group, along with so many other countries, represents 19, like in China, it represented 19.5% of their unemployed. And then they had European countries, and they were all, and the United States was close to 9%. So if you segmented just that age group, they represent even today in the United States about 9% of the unemployed, even though we know it's like 3.5. So it's weighted that way. But they also discovered that by being so successful in this young group in getting their degrees, they now have a gap in people to work in manufacturing. And it was really a discussion about the supply chain that they looked for 63,000 manufacturing jobs in China per month, and they can only fill half of those. And so it's like a crisis. And but the Generation Zs don't want to work in a manufacturing plant, but that's where the jobs are at. They came up with a word called lay down. These Gen Z people in China in that age group would rather lay down. That was a term they used, which was amazing. They go back to mom and dad and lay down, I guess. But what I'm saying is now, if you zoom forward to our dashboard that the city has, we've discovered in Pueblo that there's 5,200 jobs available as of our last dashboard and 4,500 people that are unemployed. And if you look, we also have another graph that indicates where the jobs are at and why universities and community colleges and even high schools don't look at that kind of information. We're training our kids for the wrong jobs. And it also gives you a list of all of the what you could make in those. Obviously, nursing is way at the top. Anything having to do with medicine is way at the top. But there's also jobs that we're training people right now that are going to be obsolete in 5 to 10 years. So, I like this. I like the idea of it being an incentive to businesses to be involved. They're complaining. Here's a way that they can solve the problem, and we could work collaboratively to solve that problem. And my question was really, about how many high school kids can you guys affect in this program per year for both 60 and 70? Have you done any calculations? Or
it just depends on the amount of employers that want to hire them. So we could do, conceivably as many as the employers would want to hire.
I would like to see, as a result of the luncheon, at least 75 commitments from local businesses wanting to give at least one apprenticeship started. To me, if we're not at that level, between 50 and 75 at the get-go, I'll be disappointed. It doesn't mean that it's the end of the world, because if we end up with 40 to 50 that get into the program, and then 3 years from now, they're finished. So I'm talking about just this year only. When CareerWise has rolled this out in other areas, like the last city that they did was in Eagle County. They had 50 commitments on the same day of the breakfast. And by the way, they are feeding everyone that attends a breakfast. So it's not just, come here, let's talk about this modern high school apprenticeship program, but there's actually a breakfast to enjoy. So I hope that we can get started somewhere and that we see continued growth. But if it's true that employers are needing skilled laborers, the process to start that is really now. If the colleges aren't graduating people expected to graduate with the skill sets that are needed, the question is, well, why aren't you participating in this program? And in cities that have implemented this, and if you look and do a study on apprenticeships, there are cities that have gotten a head start on this 10 years ago. I'm happy to be here because when I contacted them, Colorado Springs wasn't having an apprenticeship program, Pueblo all the way south. And they asked me, well, why wouldn't you go to Colorado Springs? And I said, I'm not from Colorado Springs. We'll go there, but I want to start this in Pueblo. If Pueblo doesn't respond, we'll go to Colorado Springs. We'll invest money in Colorado Springs. They have 5 times the labor force. They have a lot of money going in and so forth. I see the kids in Pueblo that go through these training programs as possibly commuting and working in Colorado Springs if the local employers aren't going to hire them. We want these kids to stay here and work here. I would have never left Pueblo had there been work opportunities available for me when I finished my undergraduate degree. And if I can do anything to change that for the generation that exists now, that you want to stay here, and look at the cost of housing now in Springs and Denver. A lot of kids don't have a choice to even go up there now. I mean, $1,500 for a 1-bedroom apartment. And so I think that this is a tremendous opportunity, but we have to get out and we have to knock on doors. And I really appreciate Mr. Sena.
Oh,
Sena.
Nava, Dwayne Nava.
Oh, I'm sorry, Nava, Mr. Nava, Dwayne Nava, for supporting this. He is one of 3 chambers that are going to be promoting this.
I think Mr. Atencio had a question.
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much of a question, but think bigger, Pueblo. That's exactly what you're doing. I've been on this mantra for, I don't know, the last few months. But I want to talk about the disconnected youth. Right off the top of my head, we're talking 1,500 to 2,000 disconnected youth in the county of Pueblo. And I'm rounding up and down every number I can possibly think of. And when I taught sociology at the university, one of the lessons we used to talk about was best possible choice. If their best possible choice is to hang out in the streets and get in trouble and make money that way, they're going to do it. If their best possible choice is to get into an apprenticeship program and make money that way and go, because they may be ignorant, but they're not stupid. They know where they want to go in life, and they want the better things. They want the home, the car, they want that, all that stuff. How they get there is their best possible choice. Right. And I really do see this as a best possible choice for a lot of kids.
What if 10 or 20% of those kids could be trained in a blue collar profession?
Absolutely.
And building affordable housing.
Absolutely.
For the workforce.
That's 10 or 20% that are not going to get in trouble, may not ever get into legal trouble with the police.
The
You're
housing
absolutely
piece
right.
was number 3 on the list, on our list. And that is something that we're looking to address. And by the way, that's the career. I mean, I was in real estate investment for 30 years, but education and safety, dealing with the safety issues and so forth, is crime prevention and so forth, are things that we're dealing now. But
best possible choice.
And also with the new economy and technology, you know, some people used to think if you're a car mechanic, you just open it up, there's the carburetor and there's, you know how to do that. You try and be a mechanic now with, you have to have a IT degree to do that. And so with a lot of other areas, that's the key.
By the way, the city is an employer. Mr. Mayor, the police department is an employer. The fire department is an employer. There's a lot of opportunities, and I've kind of been saying things like we need to bring apprentices into the city employment force because they'll stay with us. These are good paying jobs. They're decent paying jobs, and they'll stay with us if we bring them in.
CareerWise won't do an apprenticeship program if it doesn't lead to a livable wage.
Absolutely.
That is one of the minimum requirements, because requests, could you start an apprentice in this, this, and this?
Yeah.
And it all comes
And-
down to after.
By the way, I saw McDonald's with a sign asking for, we are hiring $15 an hour. Minimum wage today is $15 an hour. I don't know if many employers know that, but it's getting to be. It may not be
It's actually
official, but it's,
actually 1257.
no, it's 12:34. Yeah, but
1257, I think.
12,
is
whatever that
January.
is, yeah, 12. But like I
that's
say,
not gonna get-
McDonald's had a sign saying $15 an hour. That's going to be the minimum.
Counselor Martinez Ortega.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a quick question. First of all, thank you, Dr. Tienda and Mr. Galvez for the presentation. I have a few quick questions. Is your internship apprenticeship program going to provide like an economic harm offset? Like, is it going to provide like a financial incentive, or is it going to take down other kind of barriers for folks to participate in this program, like transportation, providing dinner for them? Like if this is going to be an after school thing, are you providing transportation for them to get home after school? Are you thinking about things along those lines as well?
You have to have a driver's license if you're going to be transporting yourself to work 2 days a week. Some kids will be working 3 days a week, but it's a partnership with the school districts that, they're on a 4-day work week. In 2 days, they're going to be in class, and then a minimum of 2 days, they're going to be working. It depends on the employer. If the kid that is being interviewed for, let's say a kid goes onto the CareerWise database and says, I want to work, I want to get trained and to be a maintenance tech for the school district. And they go and apply. You have to have completed your sophomore year. If you don't have transportation, that becomes something that the employer is going to have to address. How do we get you here? Well, how does that kid get to school? They're going to be going to school. They're going to be going to a school to work.
But is your program helping those folks figure any of that out? Are you just putting it on the employers, or are you actually helping those kids and families figure that out? Because I think that would make a far more successful program if you have folks who want to be there, but who just can't necessarily, they have a few barriers that they need to overcome, whether it's food, whether it's some sort of financial assistance, because who knows, they could be going and doing odds and ends jobs after, but we want to supplement those with the actual apprentice program, right? And not just odds and ends work. So then we actually,
like I said, they're going to be compensated for when they're working. They're going to be receiving tuition compensation, tuition payment for the classes that they're taking concurrently, and they can do those online, or they can go to the university or to PCC to take those classes. With respect to the transportation issues, it is really going to depend on the employer as to whether or not that's something that they're going to be able to accommodate, and we can certainly address that.
yeah, I think that as the segue between one group and the other, I think maybe that you should also start thinking about some of those transportation things, or even sending them off with like snacks and things like that. I don't know what the needs are necessarily, but I'm just asking if you've thought of those.
What we've thought about is that we want to put money in the kid's pocket so that at the end of the week, they have a paycheck. And the supportive programs that CareerWise has for opening a checking account, setting up a monthly budget, and so on and so forth, they do have services, and I don't know if this is covered in the orientation. Before you even start as an apprentice, you go through an orientation where you talk about how do you conduct yourself in the workplace, how do you answer the phone, how do you address supervisors. It's basically an introduction to how to interact in the adult community, and it's the beginning of basically being a professional. You're an employee. As an employee, you have to know what your work schedule is, and you need to be here. certainly if someone doesn't have transportation and so forth, we're going to have to look at those situations and hope that there is a way to do that. How would you suggest?
I would, well,
Uber?
Yeah.
you can get a contract with Uber, City Lyft, or a city cab, things like that, where if transportation is actually an issue, then you can address that formally through your foundation or so on. I would just hate to see some kids get set up for hopefulness of starting a program and not being able to fulfill that because of just simple
The national
barriers.
statistics are that if you start an apprenticeship program and if you've been vetted properly, the overall average is that if you start an apprenticeship program, 3 years later, 87% of the apprentices are retained and working in their field. So if you're not, if people are being hired and we are not coming at that threshold, then we're either not hiring the correct people and really vetting where they really desire to work. That's an important issue for employers to consider. And by the way, we don't make any decisions concerning who gets hired. That's completely an employer issue. So even though we provided funding for the school districts and for the university to hire apprentices, that whole process is independent of us. I don't want to be involved in that. Essentially, it's recruit as you would any position. Whoever wants and aspires a profession or a career in this particular occupation. But your point is made. I will make sure to ask career-wise how that typically is addressed. I'm sure that they have some response to that.
Yeah, and also it'd be a good idea to ask the participants as well.
The thing is,
Possibly
that's
public transportation as
yeah.
well, Uber or public transportation.
getting a job won't solve all social ills and all social challenges, but it goes a long way if it, for many kids, if it will give them that opportunity. And remember, these employers, we're asking them to invest not just by, doing their job, paying them a minimum wage, but they're investing in their future. So they're much more apt to do that kind of thing than some other employer not involved in a program like this.
I would just push for you all to advocate for those participants
Yes.
as the mediation between the two groups.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, how did your first meeting go? The Crime and Watch, the Community Enrichment Program.
We have been disappointed in the response that we've received for community enrichment classes. And in talking to Officer Chapman, who oversees the Neighborhood Watch Program, it was basically her class and Fred's class that Fred offered a class on career pathways. And the feedback that we're receiving from her is that weekends are really not a good time in the summer. She opened the door to potentially doing this, collaborating with the police department and doing it on a weekday evening. So
There were time, place, venue. We probably chose, in trying to be responsive and put it in certain parts of the community. She was saying if we put it in one area, made it after work, made it easier to come. It's cooler in the summer. So there's a lot of logistical reasons. I think there's the interest is there, but we didn't get as many students as we want. But
last Thursday in her crime prevention class at the Baptist Church, I streamed that I could only see probably 9 or 10 people in that church, but I was monitoring the Facebook Live count. They had over 5,500 people watching through Facebook Live. And so I was wanting to get in the same room and connect with people, but with people's busy schedules and so forth, it might be that this information we have more success in actually doing it through streaming. We're going to go into the high schools because we want to share this with kids. And we still don't know if we're going to be inviting parents there.
And legally too, one of the things is with the sheriff, police officer, district attorney, and public defenders, if this could be part of a diversion program, then they might order these kind of classes because it gets to the root cause of crime. You have to punish crime, but ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. If there are certain things we could do to prevent crime, then it goes a long way. And some of these kind of classes can help prevent, or at least get at some of the root cause of crime.
Great, great. And then I was just gonna make a comment for your breakfast. If you haven't reached out to Pedco yet, shooting them all this information would, probably be,
They're they're one of the sponsors.
to
too.
get some of those manufacturing businesses
I
there.
reached out to Jeff.
Great, great. Counselor Martinez, did you have anything?
No, thanks.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you so
very
much.
Thank you.
Okay, and last up, we have Mr. Hobson with the comprehensive plan.
Now it's on. Okay, thank you. Good evening, council members. At the last city council meeting, I was requested that I provide a review of the changes that the Planning and Community Development Department was proposing for the Regional Comprehensive Plan. In March, the end of March of this year, plan was submitted for potential review and approval by City Council. And that plan was approved by the Pueblo County Planning and Zoning Commission. There were 7 changes to the municipal urbanized water sections of the plan that I proposed to be included in the plan. And I wanted to go over those with you this evening, as well as provide some background on the growth scenarios that kind of led to the proposed water changes. So there's a PowerPoint that I'd like to go through with you this evening. I'll try to be go through this as quickly as I can, but I want to make sure that you're aware of what kind of how we went through the process to come to these recommendations. In the Regional Comprehensive Plan, there were 3 growth scenarios that were proposed and presented to the community as part of the overall outreach for the plan, developed by Clarion and Associates, our consultants. Scenario A was the Twin Cities outward expansion idea, which would have Pueblo West continue to grow at a faster rate than the city of Pueblo and attract more residential and non-residential development, leading to a full service community. Growth would also be able to extend north along I-25 and also to the east. And there would be future annexations to the city of Pueblo. That was the first scenario. So a more aggressive expansion of growth, both in Pueblo West and the city, Pueblo West becoming more of a full service community. Scenario B, go ahead. Oh, I've got the clicker. All right, thank you. So that was scenario A, the Twin Cities outward expansion. Scenario B is the Central City Revitalization Plan, which was focused on residential and non-residential development, primarily in downtown Pueblo and the core neighborhoods, with limited future annexations and with basically the same level of development in the future for Pueblo West and the other areas of the county. And the development was expanded to a much lesser degree than in scenario A. Scenario C is the regional centers approach, which focus both on the central core areas of the city infill development, but also in the development of what we would call the second regional area, pretty much north of the core areas of the city, I-25, US 50 corridor, northeast and northwest, which we're already seeing development occurring in those areas. So those were the three growth scenarios that were identified. Each scenario was evaluated to determine its potential impact on fiscal health, mix of land uses, housing diversity, loss of prime agricultural land, water and energy consumption, and how they align with the regional transportation plan. The preferred growth scenario that came out of the public input, the recommendations from all of the different communities that were involved in the plan was to provide a combination of scenarios B and C, so that it would be a focus on infill and improvement to the core areas of the city, but also look at growth in the areas to the north and northwest, and then have Pueblo West continue to have basically the same level of growth that they've had over the years, but not necessarily to where they would become a full service municipal city type of development that had full municipal services. These two scenarios focused on infill and revitalization, compact development, expanding of housing options, promoting efficient and fiscally sound infrastructure investments, preserving prime ag land, and then promoting sustainable development practices. With these priorities in mind, future land use plan assumes that the majority of future growth and development in the region over the next 10 to 20 years would be directed to areas within or immediately adjacent to the city of Pueblo, continue for growth within Pueblo West Metropolitan District, and then within planned employment areas. While a limited amount of future development is expected to continue in Colorado City and rural communities throughout Pueblo, growth in these areas would be limited by access to infrastructure and services, as well as market demand. While the inward focus is a strong priority, we also acknowledge that in the future, annexation requests are probably going to be submitted to the city, as well as potential development within unincorporated areas outside of the city of Pueblo. And so as part of that, the plan has an evaluation process that's identified within the plan for larger scale developments that are either proposed to be annexed into the city or developments that would be proposed in unincorporated areas outside of the city. Page 97, the plan has the evaluation criteria for major development projects, both either in the city or in the county. So with that context, we looked at proposing some changes, seven changes to the municipal water sections of the plan. And in the memo that I prepared, that's part of your packet for next Monday's meeting. The text in red indicates that there's proposed new wording, and the text that's highlighted in gray and struck out indicates the text is proposed to be removed from the plan. So here, I'm going to go through the 7 changes that we proposed. On page 69, the water resources section of the plan, the last sentence of that section, we propose to include the language that says that explore the feasibility of interconnecting infrastructure between jurisdictions for emergencies and redundancy that will not encourage development that is unsupported by permanent sources of water to meet current and future demand. There are already is interconnection within the city in Pueblo West for the joint outlet structure that's at the outlet of Pueblo Reservoir. And that's been in place for 5 or 6 years. It was developed as part of the SDS project with Colorado Springs. So that's the first change. And this wording you'll see is basically most of these have the same type of wording as the first change. The second change is water quality section of the plan. And this is just to correct an error in the plan itself. In the plan currently, it references that the water quality plan is the county's water quality plan. And it's a plan that's prepared by Pueblo County, but it's actually adopted by the Pueblo Area Council of Governments. And in another location in the plan, it references this correctly. This is just a correction that it's actually a water quality plan adopted by PACOG rather than just the county. The third change relates to surplus water allocation. And in this, prioritize inter-county use of water, of surplus water ahead of non-Pueblo County needs to ensure surplus water serves Pueblo County whenever possible for industrial and agricultural uses, along with municipal uses that will not encourage development that is unsupported by permanent sources of water to meet current and future demand. So the idea is to try to keep the water, surplus water leases as much as possible in Pueblo, provide them for agricultural and industrial uses, and when feasible, provide some municipal uses, but not have those leases usurp the permanent supply of water that's needed for future growth in other areas outside the city. The next change is on page 89, which is section 3, Regional Development Plan. And it's the Pueblo County section. And the last part of that section has the same type of wording that says new development should be encouraged to locate within existing municipalities or metropolitan districts that have the infrastructure capacity to adequately serve new development. Page 91 is the next change. And this one refers to the city of Pueblo's capacity. And the only real change here is we've removed the word regional and we've changed that to current and future needs for water. This section of the plan specifically identifies the needs for within the city, uses of water within the city. So trying to refer to this as regional needs, that section pertains to current and future needs that the city would have for our own operations and our own facilities. So that's what this change refers to. The next change is related to metropolitan districts. And again, we have the same type of wording in the middle of this paragraph where it talks about that does not allow for residents and businesses to provide services authorized in the Metropolitan District Service Plan through available annual funding. And in the plan, the way it read previously, it gave the impression that metropolitan districts provided all services that are needed. And metropolitan districts operate under service plans that provide specific services authorized under Title 32 of the state statutes. Those are not all services that are provided for residents. So this just clarifies that those districts would provide the services that are allowed under their service plan, but not necessarily all the services that would need to be provided for a community. And then the final recommended change is on page 282, and that's under the summary and findings. And that is just under section 1, Pueblo County and its partners should encourage most new development to locate within incorporated cities, towns, or existing metropolitan districts that have the infrastructure capacity to adequately serve new development. So those are the 7 proposed changes that have been recommended by the Planning and Community Development Department. Those changes were submitted to the Regional Comprehensive Plan Review Committee, and those were distributed for public comment and public review. There really was not a lot of comments back, although the comments that we did receive were not in opposition to these changes. And in addition, we submitted these to Pueblo Board of Waterworks, and Pueblo Water they're not opposed to having these changes added into the plan. So with that concludes the 7 changes, but I certainly would be open for any questions related to these proposed changes, as well as any other questions about the Regional Comprehensive Plan.
Any questions for Mr. Hobson? Counselor Flores?
Assuming that somebody would want to start a metro district, say on the northeastern part of Pueblo, how would that differ from what happened when we, and maybe the city didn't authorize the Pueblo West Metro District, maybe that went through the county, I don't know how that all works. But with all these changes, how would the city look at another metro district if somebody else wanted to start that, like Pueblo East Metro District? How would that look different today than when, that was done for Pueblo West? Or even, I guess, Colorado City also.
Right. I think that, well, first of all, those districts are approved. The service plans for those metropolitan districts are approved by the county commissioners.
Okay, that was.
And and I was going to clarify, if they are metropolitan districts that are organized and formed within the city limits, then city council, you have the authority to approve the service plan. But in those situations where the metro districts that are within the city, if those areas are annexed, then we, as part of annexation, if they're willing or able to provide the infrastructure that for servicing those areas, we're saying that we have available water to service those developments during the time. Areas that are outside of the city, those would be those metro districts, as they are developed, as they are, the land use actions are approved related to subdivision, the creation of lots. This plan recommends that there is a way to be able to review those so that there is an adequate water supply of municipal water service to those areas that would be able to service the development of those lots into the future. And currently, for the 2 larger metro districts that we have in the county, they do have water rights and they do have supply of water, but the plan when they did the review of the fiscal impact as part of the plan, it's acknowledged that both Colorado City and Pueblo West do not currently have the water rights that would be able to cover the full development of all the lots within those districts. And so if new districts are organized, I think that from a wise planning standpoint, there needs to be a concern about approving districts and approving developments that may not have the permanent sources of water to support the residents that would be having homes built within those districts.
Is there such a thing as annexing a metro district within the city? I mean, you could annex that would really be a metro district within the city. So you would have you would authorize a metro district, but at the same time, you'd also extend them within the boundaries of the city. Is there such a thing like that?
Yes, I mean, a metro district is an entirely different system of government that's authorized under Title 32 of the state statutes compared to a municipal government where, in fact, there are, for example, the Wild Horse annexation, about 20% of the land that was annexed into the city as part of the Wild Horse annexation overlapped into Pueblo West Metro District's property. And so you can annex areas that are included in other metropolitan districts.
Interesting. Thank you.
Anybody else? Maestri?
Mr. Hobson, if you could explain a couple of things to me. So this is the Pueblo Regional Comprehensive Plan, and it covers all the districts and everything within the county, correct?
Yes.
Not just, doesn't
covers the
pertain
entire
to
county.
just the city of Pueblo?
Correct.
Okay, so if it's already been approved, I mean, you participated in the meeting with the consultants and the county and the districts and everything else. And it's already been approved. Why would you come and ask us to change the language? I mean, doesn't that create a conflict? I mean, wouldn't you have taken it to the board, the review committee at the time that they were creating the plan? And you guys all work it out because how do we just change it just for the city portion?
So it was later on in the review of the plan that we looked at the municipal water segments of the plan and really took a dive into how those were worded. We did make Pueblo County aware that we were going to be proposing some changes to the municipal water section of the plan. And they were very, very close to going through their planning and zoning commission for the adoption of the plan. And so they went ahead and did not stop having the plan be adopted through their planning and zoning commission. We made them aware that we were going to propose changes and that the plan that was being proposed to city council would have these proposed changes to the municipal water sections of the plan. And we've reviewed those with Pueblo County. They are, if council approves the plan as proposed with these changes, city council approves those. Pueblo County is planning to present these to their planning and zoning commission to provide an approved amended plan with these changes.
So would it just be Pueblo County or would it be all the metropolitan districts?
Under state
Because
statute,
it's a regional.
under state statute, the regional comp plan, it can be endorsed by metro districts, but the Pueblo County and their planning and zoning commission under state statute, they're the authorized entity to approve master plans for counties.
Did the board of county commissioners, did they already approve it?
They don't approve the plan.
They don't.
They can endorse the plan, but under state statute, the county planning and zoning commission is the authorized board that approves master plans for the county.
So even if we did approve it, it's possibility that they may not correct it.
That's possible. Although we've presented these proposed changes to the county planning department. They've reviewed them with the planning and zoning commission for the county. And what we have heard is that they're not necessarily going to oppose those, but there's always that a chance that they may not.
When would they be making that decision?
It would be after the city adopts the plan with these changes.
Thank you.
Can I ask Mr. Hobson, you've indicated to me that it's pretty unusual for a city and county to have exactly the same comprehensive regional plan. It's not unusual for there to be differences. Is that correct?
That's correct. In most of the time, cities and counties undertake their own efforts to develop master plans. So that So for example, the city of Colorado Springs has their own comprehensive plan that serves the city, and El Paso County has their own master plan that covers El Paso County. Traditionally in Pueblo, at least the two previous regional comp plans that go back to like 1980, the city and the county have partnered and developed a common regional comprehensive plan that has been adopted both by the city and the county. Now, over the years, there have been amendments or changes that each of the entities have made to those plans. And in not every case, both the city and the county approved those amendments. More so, the counties proposed some amendments that the city didn't necessarily support. But overall, the plans have been almost identical. And in fact, the regional comprehensive plan today, both in the city and the county, not with this plan, but the plan that was adopted in 2001, those plans are identical. And the county's gone back and rescinded some of the amendments that they had made to the comp plan.
Mhm. Well, just because we would change it in our portion doesn't necessarily mean, well, they would have to change it overall, correct? We couldn't, because we don't have each of us have a master plan. We have a regional plan. The language would have to stay the same in both, correct?
Not necessarily. I think
Well,
the
then
city.
would it create, like if something here affects the county and what the county wants to do in one of their, or the metropolitan district, would it create a legal conflict if they wanted to do something and the city said, oh no, we wrote this here, we eliminated this and we put our own language in? Does that create, can that create conflict? Legal matters?
It would if the regional comp plans were incorporated into the land use code of either the city or the county. But these documents are not incorporated as part of the codes, land use codes of either the city or the county. They are advisory documents that are used in making decisions on land use into the future, but they are not binding legal codified documents.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a quick question, Counselor Graham.
Yep.
Well, first I want to congratulate Scott and his department for finally having a comprehensive plan. Congrats, Scott, on that. I guess, we have passed some funding allocated within the lost government revenue line item for planning and zoning to redo their codes for like the building codes. And that was really contingent on a new comprehensive plan. So now when we have a new comprehensive plan, I'm curious about when we're gonna go out to RFP for that, for the new building codes.
We are just starting developing the RFP for what the scope of work is going to be for the development of a unified land use code. And it's actually going to be a unified code that combines Title 17, the land use section of the municipal code, and incorporates Title 12, the subdivision code. Currently, we have separate codes in Title 12 and Title 17. Many cities have brought those two sections of their code into one subdivision and zoning code. And that's what we're going to be proposing, that be accomplished through the redo of the creation of a unified development code. So we're hoping to be able to go out to RFP to hire a consultant later this fall. What we do know is that the consultant market for doing these is very tight right now. And mainly that's because a number of the land use or the consultant firms that do this type of work are involved with housing studies all across the state. And so we think that if we wait till towards the end of the year, we might have a better response Pueblo County was kind of working under the same time schedules what we were looking at, and they went out to RFP for redoing their land use code, and they only received one response, and they didn't feel like it was sufficient, and so they're planning on going back out about the same time we are, towards the end, late fall, before the end of the year.
Yeah, I think that helps to give me a time frame, Scott. And then will the next comp plan be in 2047, in 25 years from now, or like what's the long-term plan there?
Most cities do like an update, significant update to their regional comp plan, probably in every 10-year cycle. In Pueblo and Pueblo County, because of the funding that's needed to be able to update the plans, we've been more on a 20-year cycle. And so I'd support having more updates on a 10-year cycle versus 20 years, which we've been following since 1980.
Okay, that helps, Scott. I think Councilor Atencio always pushes us to think bigger. And I'd like for us to think bigger and plan a little bit more with 10 years instead of 20-year increments for this comp plan.
Okay, no other questions or comments for Mr. Hobson. Thank you, sir. And that concludes our work session. We are adjourned. What?
Oh, okay.